My name is Su-shun. Name is Su-shun, right? Come on, Uncle Wong, I said, leaning back in the interrogation chair. We've known each other forever. Do we really have to do the formal routine? Name, Su-shun. Age 18. 18. And those chickens, did you hack them to death? We were in a dim interrogation room. Across from me sat a middle-aged man in a sharp black uniform. A jagged, terrifying scar ran across his face. He stared at me with a cold, expressionless gaze, but I just gave him a look of pure indifference. I sighed and tapped the table. Uncle Wong, I'll say it one more time. I'm not joking. A ghoul bit those chickens. I killed the ghoul. Then, I saw the chickens were in pain, so I decided to help them find peace. There's nothing wrong with that, right? I'm sure they didn't want to turn into ghoul chickens. Uncle Wong's face twitched. I could tell he was fighting the urge to jump across the table and beat me senseless. He took a deep breath, trying to stay professional. 25 chickens, he said, his voice heavy. Every single one of them was bitten, and you helped every single one. Yeah, I said, slapping my thigh. Talk about a coincidence, right? The door clicked open. A woman walked in carrying a tablet. She showed the screen to Uncle Wong, and he stared at it for a long time in silence. He looked like he was developing a migraine. The woman nodded slightly and turned to leave, but before she shut the door, she gave me a long look and a subtle thumbs up. As soon as the door slammed shut, Uncle Wong bolted upright. He lunged behind me and grabbed my shirt, ripping the tattered fabric right off my back. Hey, Uncle Wong, what are you doing? I yelled, trying to twist away, but he pinned me down with a grip like iron. His face went dark. He was staring at the hideous scar on my back. It had just started to scab over, but thin streaks of black blood were still oozing out. He took several deep breaths, trying to calm himself, but then he snapped. He slapped me hard on the back of the head. Are you trying to die? He roared. You haven't even awakened your talent yet, and you're out here hunting ghouls. Did you even think about Xiao Dong and Xiao Xia? And another thing, where did you get this? He reached behind his waist and pulled out a small, rusty black knife, slamming it onto the table in front of me. I went quiet. I could tell he was truly angry this time. After a long silence, I spoke softly. Sorry, Uncle Wong. A little while later, I was in a special treatment room at the hospital. I looked at the nurse who was currently using a scalpel to scrape the rotting flesh off my back. I flashed her a grin. Hey, beautiful. I'm 18, single, and I have a very gentle personality. You catch my drift. The nurse didn't smile. Her eyes stayed cold. Su-shun, the bully of East Street, started fighting at 14. A few days ago, you cracked a student's head open. That was you, wasn't it? And every few months, someone named Su-shun ends up in this treatment room. Sound familiar? My smile froze. I felt a weird blush creep up my neck. Maybe it's someone with the same name? It's a common name. On the other side of a white curtain, a young boy and a young girl heard me. They both put their hands over their faces in embarrassment. Brother, please stop talking, the boy whispered. Why are you even acting shy? The nurse ignored my flirting, but her eyes widened slightly. Scraping away necrotic flesh was agonizing. Even trained cultivators usually screamed or thrashed. But this kid, aside from being a bit pale and having shaky hands, he hadn't made a sound. She wondered what kind of life he had lived to be this tough. The door swung open. A doctor walked in with his hands behind his back, looking incredibly arrogant. When he saw my siblings sitting on a spare bed, his brow furrowed in disgust. Their clothes were old and worn, and to him, they looked like trash. What is this? The doctor barked. Who let these kids in here? This is a VIP room. They'll contaminate it. Get them out of here now. 2 orderlies stepped forward to grab them. Suddenly, I reached out and violently ripped down the white curtain surrounding my bed. I glared at the doctor, my eyes cold and predatory. The nurse was still mid-procedure, her knife deep in my back, but I didn't even flinch. It was like the blood leaking out of me belonged to someone else. What did you just say? I asked. I gave him a kind smile, but the sheer violence in my eyes was unmistakable. It wasn't the look of an 18-year-old. It was the look of a monster. Before anyone could react, the scalpel that had been in the nurse's tray was suddenly in my hand. The arrogant doctor gulped. He realized instantly that I wasn't playing around. Who said that? The doctor stammered, backing away. A doctor must have compassion. How shameful of those orderlies. He turned on his heel and fled, his assistants scurrying after him. I tossed the knife back into the tray and looked at the stunned nurse. I gave her a bashful grin. Don't look at me like that. I'm usually very polite. Eventually, the nurse finished and left with a tray of foul-smelling black flesh. As soon as she was gone, Xiao Dong and Xiao Xia rushed to my side. Brother, are you okay? Xiao Xia asked, looking at the bandages wrapped around my torso. I grinned and slapped my chest. I'm fine. Your big brother is strong as an ox. Truthfully, my back felt like it was being eaten by fire, but I'd never let them see that. We were siblings, but I was their protector. Our parents died in a ghoul riot when I was 8. I was the one who dragged them out of the carnage. Since that day, I had sworn I would never show weakness in front of them. Not even a little bit. The door opened again. Uncle Wong walked in with the woman from earlier. He gave her a look, and she nodded, smiling at my siblings. Come on, kids. Let's go get something to eat. Once they were gone, Uncle Wong sat down next to me. He stared at me so intensely it made my skin crawl. Uncle Wong, I don't like men, I joked. And you're a bit old for me anyway. A vein popped in his forehead. He ignored the comment and grabbed my hand. Suddenly, strange glowing patterns appeared on his neck and wrists. His eyes shifted, turning a bright, predatory orange like a wolf's. A wave of killing intent filled the room. I stopped joking and watched the patterns on his skin. I felt a cold energy surge through my body as he inspected me. Strange, he muttered after a moment. The patterns faded, and his eyes returned to normal. No Lorunes. No awakened attributes. How exactly did you kill that ghoul? I gave him a mysterious, smug smile. A master never reveals his secrets. Uncle Wong's face went black with frustration. He'd known me since I was a kid. He knew if I didn't want to talk, I wouldn't. Fine. Get up, he said, standing up. Come to my place for dinner tonight. Tomorrow, I'm taking you to a school to get your attributes awakened. Stop getting into trouble, you hear me? He tossed my rusty black knife onto the nightstand and walked out. I picked up the blade and stared at it. I laughed quietly to myself. If I told him the truth, they'd probably haul me off to a lab and dissect me. I gripped the handle tight and looked out the window. Uncle Wong Bing, was a squad leader in the Cinder Guard. He was the one who found us 10 years ago when we were starving refugees. He and his family had looked after us ever since. 10 years had passed in a flash, and the world was only getting more dangerous. Uncle Wong wasn't rich, but he had enough to rent us a small house and give us a place to call home. He wanted me to go to school, too. But I was Su Sheng. I couldn't keep piling up debts I couldn't pay back. I refused to go. Instead, I gave the opportunity to my younger siblings, Su Xia and Su Dong. I spent my days working odd jobs around the neighborhood. Uncle Wong tried to force me into a classroom, but I'd just disappear whenever he got close. If I hadn't been injured by that ghoul and caught red-handed by the family whose chickens I killed, he probably wouldn't have caught me this time either. 10 years. It had been 10 years already. The year was now 2521 of the Xia calendar. Back in the year 2300, the world changed. The heavens and earth trembled, and spiritual energy returned to the world. Everyone thought a new, prosperous era was beginning. They were wrong. The spiritual energy brought two terrifying forces with it. The first force turned the living and the dead into monsters. It drained their life, rotted their flesh, and turned them into ghouls. These things fed on vitality and souls. Their claws and teeth carried a corruption. If you were scratched and didn't treat it, you'd die and rise again as one of them. In a century, the world fell into darkness. Humanity became a lonely boat in a vast, violent ocean. One wrong move meant eternal damnation. But hope existed even in that despair. The second force within the spiritual energy was just as eerie, but it became our only lifeline. We called it Ghost Chi. From that darkness, the practitioners rose. They carved Lorunes onto their bodies. By channeling Ghost Chi, they could manifest these runes on their skin and unleash incredible power. I heard that high-level practitioners could do more than just show runes on their skin. They could turn them into something else entirely. To me, those stories were just rumors. The most I'd seen were the practitioners in the Cinder Guard, like Uncle Wong. I remember being locked up for a day after a street fight and seeing a young man with a green serpent rune glowing on his back. One punch from him nearly kicked up a tornado. Practitioners. Runes. It was something to look forward to. I looked down at my black knife. It was tattered and covered in rust. Yet, this piece of junk had allowed me to kill a ghoul. It had also shown me something I'd never seen before. I wondered if I should call it a little piece of junk or a system. A translucent panel floated in my mind. Subject, Sushang. Age, 18. Cultivation, 5. Technique, 5. Carving points, 10. Runes, 5. It was simple. I'd found this knife in a sewer while I was in the middle of a fight. I was taking on 7 or 8 guys at once. I was holding my own, but I ended up covered in blood and tossed into the gutter. That's where I saw the blade. I didn't know if it was like those old novels where you bond with a weapon through blood, but the moment I picked it up, I felt it bind to me. I instantly understood its purpose. This knife was meant for carving runes. If I carved or perfected runes for others, I gained carving points. Killing ghouls worked, too. Those 10 points came from the ghoul I'd just finished off. So far, I only knew that these points were used for carving my own runes. The rest was still a mystery. I didn't know much about runes, but I'd heard stories during my years working the streets. There was a prestigious profession called a rune carver. Their mental strength far exceeded normal practitioners. They possessed deep, secret techniques to perfect a person's runes, making them more beautiful and powerful. If a rune was carved poorly or crookedly, its growth would be limited. A rune that should have 10 parts of power might only have 5. Because of this, rune carvers were incredibly respected. Great figures would spend fortunes to hire a master carver the moment their children awakened their attributes. The materials and fees were astronomical. To be a carver, you needed massive mental strength, perfect technique, and a deep understanding of every rune's form. It was a dream out of reach for almost everyone. That was why my face looked so strange when I realized what the black knife was for. My parents had been painters, and I was called a child prodigy back in the day. I was actually pretty famous for it. But painting and carving runes were two completely different things. I didn't even know if my mental strength was high. Besides, I was a high school dropout. Where would I even get the chance to become a carver? I'd taken the knife home anyway. Once my old injuries healed, I went back to looking for work. That's when I saw it. A newborn ghoul in an empty yard, tearing into some chickens. I'd spent years ruling these streets. I couldn't just look away. I snuck up, pulled out the black knife, and drove it straight into the ghoul's skull. I twisted it around for good measure to make sure it stayed dead, then used some oil to cremate the body. Even with all that caution, the ghoul had managed one last struggle. Its claws caught me across the back. I saw the chickens had been bitten, too. If I didn't deal with them, they'd turn. I had to put them out of their misery. The fire from the cremation caught people's attention. The family called the Cinder Guard, and well, that's how I ended up here. I cleared my head and tucked the black knife into my waistband. I grabbed my jacket to hide the blade and strolled out of the hospital. I ran into Su Dong and Su Xia on the way. They were both eating ice cream. "Brother, I brought this for you," Su Dong said, pulling a bottle of beer from behind his back. "Nice. Good stuff," I laughed. I took a long pull of the beer and led them back home, walking like a local thug who owned the sidewalk. When we arrived, the neighbor's door was wide open. The smell of stir-fry filled the hallway. Wang Bing's voice boomed from inside. "Get your asses in here and eat." I tightened my jacket over the knife and walked in. Uncle Wang was sitting on the sofa watching TV, holding a thermos of hot tea. In the kitchen, a beautiful woman was cooking. She turned and smiled when she heard us. "Su Sheng, you're back. I heard you got arrested for hacking 20 chickens to death," Lily said, her voice drifting over the sizzle of the pan. "Leap, please," I replied, my face turning solemn. I wasn't killing them. I was performing a ritual to release their souls. Lily was Wang Bing's wife. She was also a practitioner, and rumor had it she was actually stronger than her husband. She was used to my nonsense, though. She just shook her head and went back to her stir-fry. Su Dong and Su Xia were already glued to the TV with Uncle Wang, so I took the chance to slip away. I found myself staring at a painting on the wall. It was a wolf, gray-green fur, powerful limbs, and a body built like a masterpiece of aggression. Even though it was just ink on paper, its eyes seemed to shimmer with a faint light and endless killing intent. As I watched, the lines of the wolf seemed to twitch. I rubbed my eyes and stared harder. 10 seconds. 30 seconds. A full minute passed. Suddenly, the wolf lunged out of the frame, snapping its jaws right at my face. I stumbled back, but a massive hand caught my shoulder. You haven't even awakened your attributes yet, and you're staring at a lost sigil for that long? Wang Bing asked, his voice heavy. That's the ghost wolf sigil. It's pure slaughter. Most normal people can't handle 3 seconds of it. I wiped the sweat from my forehead and gave him a guilty smile. Before I could explain myself, a scent of perfume hit me. Something soft and warm slammed into my back, arms wrapping around my neck. Little Sheng, where have you been hiding lately? A playful voice whispered in my ear. Wang Bing's face went dark instantly. Get off him. Have you no shame? Act like a lady. Oh, stop it, Dad. We haven't seen each other in ages, she laughed. The weight left my back, and a girl stepped around to face me. She was about as tall as my nose, with short hair and an athletic build that showed off her mother's genes. This was Wang Qingqing. She was my age, a genius at school, and could probably kick my teeth in without breaking a sweat. Hey, wife. I grinned, opening my arms for a hug. Long time no see. Wang Bing started unbuckling his belt. I naturally lowered my arms and took 3 steps back. Who are you calling wife? Qingqing laughed, flashed me the middle finger, and disappeared into her room to change. Dinner was a loud, family affair, and afterward, everyone headed to bed. Wang Bing stayed on the sofa, his communicator resting on his chest. Even on his day off, a squad captain had to be ready for a ghoul alert. I sat nearby, watching him out of the corner of my eye. Eventually, his eyes closed. The snoring started. I felt a wicked grin spread across my face. I knew my Uncle Wang. Once he hit that deep sleep, he was out for the count. Uncle Wang, please don't kill me when you wake up, I thought. My hands were shaking. After staring at that ghost wolf painting for a minute, every line of the sigil was burned into my brain. It felt like I'd been drawing it for years. I'd even snuck out after dinner to practice on the ground, and it had come out perfectly. Now, I wanted to try it on the real thing. I'd heard Wang Bing complain about how expensive sigil masters were and how his own progress had stalled because his markings were outdated. I took a breath and carefully peeled back the sleeve of his shirt. He didn't stir. I pulled out my black knife and hovered the tip over his skin. Normally, you can't see a lost sigil unless the practitioner activates their energy or the observer has massive spiritual power. I had neither. But as I gripped the knife and focused on his arm, something happened. Faint, glowing lines began to manifest on his skin. This knife really is a cheat code, I realized. It didn't just help me draw, it let me see. I shook my head, looking at the lines on his arm. They were messy, but fixing them would require a major overhaul. I needed a smaller spot to test first. I remembered him mentioning a flaw in the sigil on his back. I hesitated for a second, then gritted my teeth. I reached out and started unbuttoning his shirt. In the dim light of the living room, 2 eyes snapped open. They glowed like twin ghostly lanterns, staring directly into mine. The silence was agonizing. Uncle Wang, I croaked. I can explain. A few minutes later, we were sitting on a bench outside the apartment complex. Wang Bing was smoking a cigarette, looking at me with a complicated expression. I sat there with my head down, nursing a fresh lump on my skull where he'd clobbered me. Look, Sheng, he said, sounding genuinely concerned. I don't approve of this, but if your preferences have changed, you should go to a hospital. Get some help. I nearly choked. Uncle Wang, it's not like that. I like girls. I like Qingqing, can't you tell? His face darkened again. Don't bring my daughter into this. You were stripping me in my sleep while holding a knife. Were you planning to give me tetanus so you could have her all to yourself? I'm a sigil master. I blurted out. It was the only way. Wang Bing nodded slowly. Right. And I'm a magical talking cat. Stop messing around. I knew he wouldn't believe words. I pulled out the black knife and knelt on the pavement. What are you doing? He growled. I didn't answer. I pressed the tip to the concrete and began to move. My hand was a blur, the strokes fluid and precise. Wang Bing started to tell me to stop ruining the sidewalk, but the words died in his throat. He stood up, his eyes widening until they looked like they might pop out. Under the blade, a fierce, majestic wolf's head was taking shape. The ghost wolf, he whispered. He knew I could draw, but lost sigils were different. You couldn't just copy them. They required a specific frequency of energy that only a sigil master could replicate. I finished the last line and stood up, tucking the knife away with a flourish. I tried to look as mysterious and profound as possible. "We good, old man?" I asked. I guess we're good," he muttered, his brain clearly struggling to process what he was seeing. He looked at me like he was seeing a ghost. "How did you do it?" Wang Bing asked, his voice trembling. "You're an ordinary person. You haven't even awakened. How could you remember the patterns of a lost sigil?" I started spinning a lie on the spot. "Well, it's a long story. I met this old man the other day, and he told me I had a rare, natural talent," he said. Wang Bing waved his hand, cutting me off. He looked like his head was about to explode. Without a word, his palm glowed with energy, and he swiped it across the pavement. The wolf head I had just carved vanished instantly, the concrete smoothed over by sheer force. He walked back to the bench and sat in silence. I didn't push him. I just stood there, waiting. Finally, he spoke, his voice hesitant. "Are you sure this will work?" I grinned. I knew Wang Bing better than anyone. I knew his obsession, strength. He wanted to get stronger, no matter the cost. I'd heard the rumors from his daughter, Ching Ching. His wife, Li Li, came from a powerful family that looked down on him. He'd been suppressed and belittled for years. To make matters worse, his own lost sigil was incomplete, and he didn't have the money to hire a professional scrivener to fix it. That was why he was always so grumpy. That was why he pushed himself so hard. I knew he was desperate enough to gamble on me. "Trust me," I said, nodding firmly. "I've got this." Wang Bing's face twitched. He gritted his teeth, reached for his shirt, and yanked it open, baring his chest. "Fine. I'll trust you this once. Do it." He closed his eyes like a man facing a firing squad. I felt a surge of warmth in my chest. Anyone else would have called me crazy, but this man, the man who had been like a father to me for 10 years, was actually putting his life in my hands. I pulled out the black knife and knelt before him. As I focused, I saw it. A faint, glowing wolf's sigil was etched into his skin. But as I looked closer, my eyebrows shot up. The lines around the wolf's eyes were incredibly awkward. Instead of looking majestic and fierce, the eyes were pointing in different directions. It looked like a cross-eyed, idiotic dog. I almost burst out laughing. "Uncle Wang, who did this to you?" "Just get on with it," he muttered. Suddenly, voices drifted from the nearby path. "Where are we going next, babe? Hee at this hour? What do you think?" A young couple stepped out of the shadows and froze. The scene was compromising. Wang Bing was leaning back on the bench, shirt wide open, legs spread, while I was kneeling between his knees, reaching out to touch his bare chest. The girl gasped, covering her mouth. The guy's eyes went wide. Sorry," the guy stammered, his face turning bright red. "Don't mind us. Carry on. Keep doing whatever you're doing." He grabbed his girlfriend and sprinted back the way they came. I heard him muttering something about crazy old men in the park as they disappeared. Wang Bing's face went from pale to beet red to deathly black. Without a word, he grabbed my collar. In a blur of motion, the world spun. A second later, we were standing on the roof of a high-rise building. "Hurry up," he growled through gritted teeth. "Before someone else sees us." I nodded and raised the black knife. "Wait." Wang Bing flinched. "Did you disinfect that thing? I'm going to get tetanus." I stared at him, deadpan. "You're a powerful cultivator who fights monsters, and you're worried about a rusty blade." He paused, looking embarrassed. "Right. Good point. Go ahead." I didn't hesitate. I lunged forward, the tip of the black knife cutting a perfect, graceful arc across his chest. Blood bloomed instantly. Wang Bing gasped in shock. He hadn't even suppressed his internal energy, yet my blade had sliced through his skin like butter. But as the line was completed, a massive weight hit my brain. It felt like a sledgehammer had slammed into my skull. My vision flipped, my knees buckled, and the world went black. Wang Bing caught me before I hit the gravel. As I lay unconscious, a roar erupted from his body. His shirt disintegrated as a terrifying chill surged through the air. The crooked, idiotic wolf on his chest began to glow. Under the influence of my single stroke, the lines shifted. The eyes aligned, turning into piercing, glowing orbs of ghostly light. A faint wolf's howl echoed from deep within his bones. I can break through," Wang Bing whispered, his hands shaking. "I'm finally reaching the ghost realm." He looked down at me, his expression a mess of confusion and gratitude. He had taken me in years ago out of pity, never imagining that the orphan boy would be the one to unlock his destiny. I wasn't a traditional scrivener, but I had done the impossible. When I finally opened my eyes, I felt something soft beneath my head. It was warm and smelled like flowers. I heard the low hum of a car engine and felt a gentle swaying motion. I looked up. Ching was looking down at me with a playful, knowing smirk. I was lying right in her lap. "You're awake," she said. I groaned, clutching my head. "Ugh, my brain is splitting open. I need to lie here for a few more minutes." My acting was terrible, but I didn't care. I caught a glimpse of the driver in the rearview mirror. It was Li. If it had been Wang Bing driving, he would have kicked me out of the moving car by now. "Lin Yuan," Li said, her voice filled with a rare, suppressed excitement. "What did you do to old Wang last night? He's been grinning like a fool all morning. He actually broke through to the ghost realm." I feigned surprise, but internally, I pulled up my status system. My sigil points had jumped from 10 to 60. A single line had given me 50 points. It worked. I wasn't just a survivor anymore. I was a master. "Little Ching," I said, leaning back. "Since I awakened today, we need to have a massive feast to celebrate." Li nodded, her eyes flashing with a rare hint of gratitude as she glanced at me through the rearview mirror. I knew what she was thinking. She used to find me unreliable, but now, I was starting to grow on her. I was over 6 feet tall, fit, with a buzz cut and skin bronzed from years of working outdoors. I wasn't a bad-looking guy. My only problem was my behavior. It was usually pretty reckless. "Hee, then we're going all out," I chuckled. I wasn't sure if Li knew exactly what I'd done for Wang Bing, but she'd clearly guessed it was my doing. Her tone had shifted from frustrated disappointment to something much softer. "Where's Uncle Wang?" I asked, sitting up straight. "He's at Ching's school," Li replied. "You're going there to awaken today, too. Your Uncle Wang already spoke to the administration about your situation." I nodded and kept quiet, but I felt a pang of emotion. I knew I didn't have the right to awaken at a high school since I wasn't a student. Getting an outsider into a prestigious school for the ceremony was incredibly difficult. I didn't know how Uncle Wang pulled it off, but I knew he must have paid a heavy price. The car slowed to a halt. Outside, the streets were packed. A massive crowd was swarming the entrance of Experimental High, and I could hear shouting. "What's going on?" I stepped out of the car. The school gates were blocked by a sea of people. 2 men were in the middle of a heated argument. As I got closer, my expression turned grim. One of those voices sounded exactly like Uncle Wang. "Wang Bing, today is a sacred day for these kids," a man shouted. "This is a top-tier high school. You're trying to hand a slot to some uneducated outsider? What are you thinking?" Wang Bing stood at the gate, his face pale with rage. Facing him was a middle-aged, pudgy man wearing the same new fireguard uniform. He was a captain, just like Uncle Wang. The fat man turned to the crowd, raising his voice heroically. "Everyone, we all know today is the day our children awaken. We cannot be careless. Captain Wang wants to bring a jobless street thug into this school. I, Zhang Ling, will never allow it." He looked at Wang Bing with a smug grin. The crowd immediately erupted into whispers. "He's right," a parent yelled. "My kid is in there. What if this outsider is dangerous? I heard about someone sneaking in years ago and causing a riot during the ceremony," another added. "No, he can't go in. Captain Wang, we respect you," someone else called out, looking pained. "Don't ruin your reputation for this." Wang Bing didn't flinch. His voice was calm but heavy. "I am Wang Bing, captain of the 18th Squad. I swear on my life. If anything goes wrong, I will pay the price with my own head." The crowd went silent. When a captain puts his life on the line, there isn't much left to say. But Zhang Ling's eyes flashed with malice. "Your life? If something happens to these kids, your death won't fix it. Besides, I heard you spent a fortune to get this slot. His name is Su Shun, right? Does that name ring a bell?" Zhang Ling turned back to the crowd. "He's a brawler from the East District. They call him the Skullcracker King. Can you really trust a vagrant like that near your children?" The atmosphere turned toxic instantly. Everyone from the East District knew my name. I wasn't a criminal, but I was definitely trouble. "Zhang Ling, is this really necessary?" Wang Bing's eyes burned with fury. These two had been rivals for years. It started when Uncle Wang discovered Zhang Ling was taking bribes from underground gangs. Wang Bing had reported him, but Zhang Ling had connections. He got off with a slap on the wrist and kept his rank. He'd hated Uncle Wang ever since. I'm just doing my job, Zhang Ling sneered. But you, Captain Wang, protecting that brat, even buying him a slot. What is he? Your secret bastard son? Or are you sleeping with his dead? I'll kill you. A roar cut him off. Before Zhang Ling could finish his sentence, a dull thwack echoed through the air. His head snapped forward as a brick collided with the back of his skull. He stumbled, stars dancing in his eyes, blood beginning to pour down his neck. Who the hell? Zhang Ling spun around, but the words died in his throat. A cold, black blade was pressed firmly against his windpipe. I stared into his eyes with a look of pure, murderous intent. A cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He was a captain, but he only had basic cultivation. This knife could still open his throat. Say it again, I said, a jagged, terrifying smile spreading across my face. I pressed the blade deeper. Go on. Finish that sentence. Su Shun. What are you doing? Get over here. Wang Bing shouted, his face pale. He was terrified I was actually going to gut the man. I glanced at Uncle Wang, then hissed at Zhang Ling. I pulled the knife back. If you ever open your mouth about them again, I'll end you. I don't care if I have to flee the city and live in the wild. I will kill you. Zhang Ling clutched his bleeding head, trembling. He didn't say a word, but his eyes were full of venom as he turned and hurried away. The parents stared at me, horrified. I had just held a knife to a new fireguard's throat. Some of the cultivators in the crowd noticed I had zero spiritual energy. I had approached a captain using nothing but raw stealth and a brick. The brick was still lying on the ground. I turned to the parents and gave them a warm, friendly smile. Sorry about that. I'm usually not like this. Everyone knows I'm a man of reason. Peace is everything to me. I paused, my smile turning sharp. But he insulted my Uncle Wang. What young man doesn't have a little fire in his blood? You understand, right? Oh, hey, Auntie. I remember your son. He came out for skewers with me last week. He's a good kid. Let's keep it that way. The parents froze. Some of them looked like they wanted to cry. I was basically telling them that if they kept complaining, their kids were next on my list. The complaints stopped instantly. Nobody wanted to catch a brick to the head. What was that? Wang Bing growled as he led me, Ching-Ching and Lili toward the school building. Where did you learn to act like that? Ching-Ching and Lili looked equally upset. They had heard Zhang Ling's insults, but my reaction had shocked them. Su Shun, you can't be that impulsive, Wang Bing warned, his voice low and serious. Pulling a knife on a guard is a massive crime. And Zhang Ling's uncle was the former commander. You're playing with fire. I just nodded vaguely. And another thing, Wang Bing continued, looking at me suspiciously. How did you do that? The way you moved with that brick, the way you held that knife to his throat. You looked like a predator. That wasn't the look of an 18-year-old kid. I didn't answer for a long time. We just walked in silence. Eventually, I let out a dry laugh. Uncle Wang, people like to sit in their high towers and judge. They tell me what I should and shouldn't do, but in my position, I never had a choice. I looked at the ground as we entered the school. I'm a nobody. No background, no money. I tried being patient. I tried being humble. I tried backing down. All it did was make them push harder. In this world, if you don't bite back, they'll eat you alive. I learned a long time ago that if I didn't want to be bullied, I had to be more ruthless than the people coming for me. My parents were gone. I was all my younger siblings had left. I had to become a monster to protect them. I looked at Uncle Wang and told him straight that I wasn't going to change. The world is a cruel place. Backing down, acting weak, or compromising just gives people a reason to look down on you. I chose to be dangerous because it was the only way to survive. We moved deeper into the school grounds toward the ceremony. In this world, practitioners follow 5 major realms: spirit awakening, heart strengthening, fire mastery, sorrow communication, and hidden divinity. Each stage is split into early, middle, and late phases. Every breakthrough means your runes and your raw power explode to a new level. Today was the most important day of our lives. We were here to awaken our attributes and see which runes we were compatible with. In the center of the school playground, a chubby middle-aged man with glasses stood on a massive stone platform. It was the principal, Ding Wentian. He held a megaphone, shouting to the crowd about the significance of the day. There were hundreds of teenagers my age surrounding the platform, their eyes burning with excitement and hunger. They knew the basics, but the principal kept droning on anyway. It was an old tradition, a speech passed down from the very first generation of awakeners. I didn't care much for the lecture. I found a set of stone steps at the back of the crowd and leaned back, crossing my legs and rubbing my chin as I scanned the students. "What's with that look in your eyes?" Ching asked, slapping my arm. She was sitting next to me, looking worried. "Don't you dare start any trouble here." I snapped out of my thoughts and grinned. "I'm just seeing a lot of familiar faces. Plenty of regulars from the East Street Market." "Regulars? What does that mean?" She gave me a suspicious look. "You don't need to know, kid," I said, putting on a deep, serious voice. "Sometimes knowing too much is a burden." Ching rolled her eyes and flipped me the bird. Around us, I noticed several boys stealing envious glances at me. They had all heard rumors that the school beauty had a close male friend, but they hadn't expected it to be me. They looked like they were wondering what a guy like me had done to deserve sitting next to her. Not far away, a skinny kid who looked like a monkey nudged the guy next to him. His friend was 18 but built like a tank, with a thick beard that made him look 30. He would have been intimidating if it weren't for the thick layers of gauze wrapped around his head. "Hey, boss," the skinny kid whispered. "Didn't you say you were going to warn off the guy hanging around the school beauty? There he is." The big guy, Lu Jian, turned pale. He caught my eye for a split second and immediately looked away, his face darkening. "You see this bandage on my head?" "Yeah, what happened?" "That's the guy who did it," Lu Jian hissed. The skinny kid gasped. "He's that tough? Even you couldn't handle him." Lu Jian let out a cold, bitter laugh. "The guy isn't human. He fights dirty and he's ruthless. If he wasn't worried about catching a murder charge, he would have killed me. Look around. Most of the guys here acting tough have been beaten down by him at some point." The skinny kid was speechless. No wonder the usual school bullies were acting so quiet today. Up on stage, the principal was still yapping away, waving his arms enthusiastically. It felt like a funeral dirge to me. I was getting drowsy. I closed my eyes and leaned my head back, resting it right on Ching's lap. "Wake me up when it's my turn," I mumbled. Ching thought I was just exhausted from my injuries, so she didn't push me away. She just nodded and let me rest. The crowd went wild. I could hear the whispers of the guys nearby. "I can't believe it. He's actually lying on her lap? I've never even touched her water bottle. I haven't even gotten close enough to smell her hair. This guy is a legend." Some of the girls were whispering too, but their tone was different. "He's actually kind of handsome. Very masculine. I heard he's the little overlord of East Street. He's way better than the boys in our school." "Whatever," another girl sneered. "I thought she was so pure, but she's just hanging out with a thug." Ching didn't flinch. She didn't care what they thought. "Silence! Silence!" the principal shouted. He had noticed the commotion and followed the students' gazes until he saw me lying on his star student's lap. His face turned red. "Who dares disrespect?" He stopped mid-sentence. He recognized my face. I could see the bad memories flashing behind his eyes. He cleared his throat awkwardly and changed the subject. "All right, let's begin the testing. When I call your name, come up." That got everyone's attention. Gossip was fun, but awakening was life-changing. There was a stone chair on the platform. The principal explained that the chair would erupt in flames, and the resulting phenomenon would reveal our attributes. The size of the display would determine our talent's upper limit. "Li Mingyu," the principal called. A boy walked up and sat on the chair. Immediately, dark gold flames engulfed him. He groaned in pain, his body shaking. The principal explained that this was the process of heart-fire tempering. You had to endure the pain to wake up the power in your blood. If you couldn't handle it, you were destined to be a commoner, a victim in this chaotic world. Li Mingyu grit his teeth and endured. A minute later, the flames died down, and a pillar of fire shot 50 meters into the sky. Fire attribute. 50 meters. Not bad, the principal said, nodding. The test continued for hours. I woke up, grabbed some lunch with Ching, and went back to watch. As the sun began to set, a massive explosion of golden light erupted from the stage. It was blinding, piercing the clouds like a giant arrow. Murong Xin. Gold attribute. 350 meters. The principal's voice shook with pure joy. A genius. a top-tier genius. Usually, anything over 100 meters was considered impressive. 350 was legendary in our city's history. Murong Xian, a girl with twin ponytails and a tight white outfit, stood up calmly. She looked like she had expected this. She turned her head and shot a provocative look at Qingqing. I felt her stare and glared back. What are you looking at? Murong Xian just shook her head dismissively and walked down. Who's that bird brain? I asked lazily. With those ponytails, her head looks like it has 2 giant feet growing out of it. Wang Qingqing almost burst out laughing at my comment. That's Murong Xian, she whispered. People always call me a joke, but she's the one who's been obsessed with competing against me for years. She paused, a playful glint in her eyes. She's probably just jealous that I have such an outstanding boyfriend. I nodded seriously, soaking in the praise. Makes sense. Get lost. Qingqing laughed, shoving my shoulder. Since when are you my boyfriend? Despite her words, I could see the genuine happiness dancing in her eyes. She wasn't actually mad. Next up, the principal called out, his voice booming across the field. Su Shun. In an instant, every eye in the crowd snapped toward me. I didn't let it faze me. I stood up, stretched my arms lazily, and sauntered toward the stage. As I reached the principal, I gave him a casual wave. Hey, old man Ding. Long time no see. Sorry I haven't visited your place lately. Before I could finish, the principal lunged forward and clamped his hand over my mouth. Cold sweat beaded on his forehead. Kid, you're my ancestor, okay? Just don't say another word. I gave him a look that said I get it. Your secret's safe with me, and walked past him. I sat down on the stone chair. Whoosh. Dark flames erupted, swallowing me whole. The crowd gasped, but I didn't move. I didn't flinch. To everyone else, this was heart-fire tempering, an agonizing trial of endurance. To me, it felt like nothing. I sat there perfectly still, as calm as if I were resting on a throne. The atmosphere shifted. The other students knew how much this hurt, and seeing me sit there with a bored expression was unnerving. 1 minute passed. 3 minutes. 10 minutes. Principal Ding was sweating again. This wasn't normal. Why hasn't he awakened yet? He muttered, his hand hovering near his belt. It's been 10 minutes. If this keeps up, he'll burn to a crisp. He was ready to jump in and drag me out. Finally, at the 15-minute mark, the flames died out. An invisible ripple pulsed through the air, vibrating for a split second before vanishing into nothingness. The crowd stared, waiting for a pillar of light or an explosion of power. Nothing happened. The principal cleared his throat, his face returning to its professional mask. Su Shun. Attribute, null. Talent, physical body type. I blinked, looking at him in confusion. Hey, old man Ding, what does null mean? It means you have no elemental attribute, he explained with a sigh. You can't etch any elemental runes. You can only use weak, auxiliary runes. People call your type the stagnant body. Don't lose heart, Su Shun. Even with a stagnant body, some people manage to grow a little. He patted my shoulder, his eyes full of pity. I could tell he actually liked me, but in his eyes, my path was now a dead end. He looked troubled, though. He kept glancing around, sensing that something had just swept past him, but he couldn't put his finger on it. I stayed silent for a moment, then let out a sharp grin. Old man, do you read web novels? All that talk about trash talents and stagnant bodies is just for people who don't know how to play the game. Others are others. I am me. Just because they can't do it doesn't mean I can't. I gave him a signature crooked smirk and hopped off the stage. I could feel the mocking stares of the crowd following me. One kid I'd beaten up before even found the courage to step in my way. Su Shun, he sneered, chin held high. Wait until I etch my runes. I'm going to crush you. I didn't say a word. I just looked him dead in the eyes. The coldness in my gaze sent him stumbling back, his bravado vanishing instantly. 30 years in the east, 30 years in the west. He muttered to himself, retreating into the crowd to nurse his bruised ego. Qingqing walked up to me, her face tight with worry. She opened her mouth to comfort me, but the words wouldn't come. I'm fine, I said, winking at her. Go get him, wife. Do your best. She rolled her eyes and stopped worrying. She knew me too well. If I was still talking nonsense, it meant I wasn't bothered at all. Last one, the principal announced. Wang Qingqing. The attention shifted. I was just a footnote now, To the crowd, I was a stagnant body. Someone who might be able to etch a rune to help start a cooking fire, but nothing more. We lived in different worlds now. They wanted to see what the school's top student could do. I bet her talent is insane, one guy whispered. Who cares? She's already been taken by that loser Su Shan. Another grumbled. Near the front, Morong Xin stood silently. A girl next to her leaned in. Do you think she'll be stronger than you? She's looked down on you for 3 years. If she fails here, you'll finally be on top. Morong Xin looked at her with cold, calm eyes. I don't hate her. I just want to see who is better. If I win, I'll be happy. If I lose, it doesn't matter. Keep your petty thoughts to yourself. On stage, Principal Ding smiled warmly at Qingqing. He knew her father, Wang Bing, and he knew her mother's talent had been legendary. Don't be nervous, student Wang. Qingqing sat down. The fire roared to life. She winced for a second, then her face smoothed out into a mask of calm. I watched from the distance, curious. 5 minutes passed. The flames began to fade. The principal frowned. No reaction? It can't be another stagnant body, can it? I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Something was wrong. I grabbed a nearby student by the collar. What time is it? 6:30, he stammered, checking his watch. I looked up. The sky wasn't just evening dark. It was pitch black. Ink black. Principal Ding noticed it too, his head snapping toward the clouds. Boom. A massive wave of black energy erupted from the center of the stage. It shot into the sky like a pillar of shadow, cold and piercing. A freezing wind swept across the field, turning the air into a graveyard chill. Qingqing sat in the center of it, her figure obscured by a thick, swirling mist of ghostly energy. My God, Principal Ding whispered, stumbling back in horror. This is... Suddenly, 2 streaks of light tore through the darkness, landing silently in the air above the playground. That's Wu Yun. The captain of the new fire guard, someone screamed. And the commander, Jiang Yuyi. The 2 figures blurred and landed next to the principal. Wu Yun was covered in the scent of blood and battle, his beard messy and his eyes sharp. Jiang Yuyi wore a formal suit and glasses, looking like a cold intellectual. Principal Ding. Wu Yun's raspy voice cut through the wind. Who is this? Wang Qingqing, Ding stammered. The daughter of Captain Wang Bing. Ghost attribute, Jiang Yuyi whispered, his eyes narrowing behind his glasses. This is only the 2nd time a ghost attribute has appeared in our country. And her awakening. It's even more terrifying than the first one. Wu Yun looked up at the black sky, his expression grim. This is a massive event. I need to report this to the higher-ups immediately. Until then, she is not allowed to leave this city. Jiang Yuyi vanished in a blur of motion. His words were quiet, but the students near the stone platform heard enough. A wave of panic began to spread through the crowd like a virus. Ghost attribute. The name alone carried a heavy weight. 50 years ago, a genius with the ghost attribute rose to power in our country. No one knows exactly what happened, but he turned traitor and fled. Before he left, he unleashed a catastrophe that wiped out half a city. Every high school student had seen those photos in their history books, streets piled high with the dead. Since then, the ghost attribute had vanished. We were taught that it was a curse. The stronger you got, the more it eroded your mind. If your will wasn't made of steel, you became a puppet to your own power, a monster that couldn't control its own consciousness. And now, Qingqing was one of them. The whispers reached my ears, sharp and cruel. I felt a cold light flash in my eyes. I shifted my weight, moving quietly toward her. Qingqing stood there, her face deathly pale. She looked lost. Ghost energy? How? Her parents didn't have this. Usually, talent followed the bloodline, unless you were one of the unlucky few to hit a special mutation. She wasn't lucky. She could feel it too. I watched as the spiritual energy from the world around us spiraled inward, pouring into her body and turning into a freezing, deathly mist. Little girl, you need to come with me. Wu Yun saw her distress and shook his head. He stepped forward, reaching out a hand to grab her. But in the next heartbeat, his expression shifted. He snapped 2 fingers together, catching a black blade midair. I stood there, my face twisted into a savage grin, staring him down. I didn't have cultivation. I didn't have an attribute. But I had my knife. She's just an 18-year-old girl, I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline. She hasn't done anything wrong. Why do you need to take her? The entire field went silent. People looked at me like I was a dead man walking. I had just pulled a blade on Wu Yun, the captain of the new fire guard, a peak-level powerhouse. Wu Yun looked at me, a spark of genuine interest in his eyes. He looked at the girl I was shielding behind my back and seemed to realize something. "What's your name?" he rasped. "Su Shun." "If I insist on taking her today, you can't stop me," he said calmly. "I know," I replied. "But I'll make sure I leave a scar on you before I go. Besides, you're a captain. Bullying a little girl isn't a good look. I want to know exactly what she did wrong." Principal Ding's face turned white. He looked like he was about to faint. I could tell he was thinking the same thing as everyone else. "Su Shun, you really have a death wish. Are you threatening me?" Wu Yun's face suddenly turned fierce. A massive wave of killing intent crashed into me. It felt like a sea of blood was swallowing me whole, filled with the screams of rotting corpses. My face went pale, but I didn't back down. I twisted my black knife and ripped it back. It happened so fast most people missed it. But Wu Yun and Principal Ding saw it. A single, tiny drop of blood flickered in the air. I stumbled back, my body trembling from the pressure, but I kept myself planted firmly in front of Qingqing. I was like a wild beast guarding its territory. Wu Yun froze. Principal Ding looked like his brain had short-circuited. He couldn't believe his eyes. Wu Yun, the war god of the Northeast, had just been cut by a kid with a scrap metal knife. Wu Yun stared at the microscopic red slit on his finger. "He broke my skin. A brat with a broken knife actually drew blood." Silence stretched for a long time. Then, suddenly, Wu Yun threw his head back and roared with laughter. I frowned. Was this guy insane? Good. Su Shun, I'll remember that name. He laughed again, gave me one last look, and stepped into the air. With a thunderous boom, he vanished into the sky. I knew what he was doing. He knew Wang Bing, so he knew who Qingqing was. He wasn't actually going to hurt her. He just wanted to get her home before a riot started. We had played a silent game of charades in front of the crowd. He acted the villain, and I played the shield. But I think I gave him a bigger surprise than he expected with that cut. The black clouds finally began to thin, revealing the sunset. My hand was cramping so hard I thought I'd pulled a muscle. That guy's finger strength alone was more powerful than my entire body. I took a deep breath and grabbed Qingqing's hand. "Let's go. He's not taking you." "Su Shun, don't talk. Just walk," she whispered. She was starting to accept the reality of her power. We headed for the school gates. No one dared to get in our way. The two dangerous elements finally found each other. The laugh was low, but in the silence of the playground, it sounded like a gunshot. It came from a kid in a designer suit with slicked back hair, standing near Lu Jian. Lu Jian looked at the kid like he was the world's biggest idiot and immediately backed away, dragging his friends with him. The crowd parted around the suit-wearing brat like he had the plague. "What are you guys scared of?" the kid scoffed. "What's he gonna do?" "You moron," someone hissed. "He just pulled a knife on the captain. Do you have manure for brains?" I stopped walking. I turned to Qingqing and gave her a small smile. "Wait here a second." I walked toward the boy. He tried to keep a smug look on his face, but I could see his knees shaking. My fist collided with his face. Blood sprayed from his nose, and a tooth flew out. Before he could fall, I grabbed his hair and slammed his head down. His face hit the pavement hard. The surrounding students shivered at the sound. You bastard." He wheezed, his voice muffled by the dirt. I didn't say a word. I just kept a smile on my face as I gripped his hair and slammed his head into the ground again. And again, until his face was a mask of red and he started sobbing. "Stop. Please stop." He blubbered through broken teeth. "Smile?" I whispered, still grinning. "Why aren't you smiling anymore? I thought you liked to laugh." To the students watching, I probably looked like a demon. I stood up, wiped my hands, and looked around at the crowd. My voice was dead calm. "Remember this. There's only one dangerous element here. Me." I turned back to Qingqing and we left. Later that day, I walked into an abandoned factory on the East Street. A group of guys were busy repairing car parts and scrap metal. They looked up as I walked in. "Brother Shun, you're back. How'd the awakening go?" My eyes lit up as I stepped into the shop. I said, rolling my eyes as I checked the time. "It's been over for a while now. You guys don't even know what time it is." I didn't wait for an answer. I walked straight past them into my dilapidated little office. Behind me, I heard the guys whispering. Brother Shin looks like he's in a bad mood. Mind your business and get back to work. We give him 10% of everything we make from these repairs. He's got a younger brother and sister to raise. You think he's going to be smiling all day? True. Brother Shun is a good man. I ignored them and shut the door. I sat down in my rickety office chair, gripping my black blade. I closed my eyes, and a mental interface flickered to life in my mind. Name, Su Shun. Age, 18. Cultivation, 5. Cultivation method, 5. Engraving points, 60. Runes, 5. A sudden jolt hit my brain. Dizziness washed over me, and when I opened my eyes, a faint light flickered in my pupils. 5 ancient runes were now recorded in my mind, along with a cultivation technique, the 9 gates of the bright immortal. So it's finally here, I muttered. I always knew the Black Blade system wasn't just going to turn me into some runic scholar. As I gripped the hilt, new information flooded my consciousness. A technique and a set of runes. I looked at the patterns in my mind. They were mysterious, complex, and felt incredibly ancient. They lacked the refined beauty of modern spiritual runes, but they carried a heavy, weathered aura of history. I searched my phone for runes, but found nothing. No records. No mentions. Nothing. I sank back into my consciousness to study the 9 gates of the bright immortal. My expression turned strange. I couldn't practice it yet. Most practitioners have to engrave runes onto their bodies before they can officially cultivate. The technique speeds up energy absorption and nourishes the runes. Usually, people choose a matching set. That meant my first priority was engraving these runes onto my flesh. But as I read the instructions, my blood ran cold. The method was brutal. Normal runes are etched onto the skin with special tools, and they naturally merge with the body. But runes? They had to be carved directly into the muscle. I had to slice myself open and drive the blade deep into my own meat. Are you kidding me? I hissed. This was pure self-mutilation. Would I do it? Of course I would. A little physical pain was nothing compared to being weak. Don't come in here, no matter what you hear, I shouted to the guys outside. I grabbed the black blade and looked at the back of my right hand. The first rune was large, covering the entire area. I opened a small box under my desk containing a deep red powder. My heart twinged. I'd saved for 2 years to buy this material. It was meant to strengthen runes during the engraving process. I wanted to save it for my siblings, Su Dong and Su Xia, but if I succeeded now, I'd be able to earn much more for them later. I gritted my teeth. I dipped the tip of the blade into the red powder and lined it up with my hand. Spiritual energy began to swirl around the steel. Slash. I dragged the blade down. The skin split instantly, revealing flashes of white bone. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. Sweat poured down my face in seconds. The blade went deeper. Damn it, I growled, my vision blurring. The pain was agonizing. I'd had chunks of flesh torn out before. I'd had bones broken. But this was a different kind of hell. My body shook uncontrollably, but my hand stayed steady. I forced the blade through the meat, completing the first stroke. Suddenly, blood-red patterns flared to life on my wrist. The swirling spiritual energy in the room went wild, screaming as it poured into the fresh wound. I sat there, pale and drenched in sweat, staring at my hand in shock. The wound was knitting itself back together at a visible speed. The pain was being washed away by a strange, soothing energy radiating from the bone. I could feel it. As the energy flooded in, the invisible wound began pumping power into every inch of my body. Just one stroke, and I felt a massive shift. My 60 engraving points were gone, used up just to finish this tiny section, but the change was undeniable. I slowly clenched my fist. A low, thunderous boom echoed from my joints. A strange, bloody ripple of energy drifted around me. I had officially entered the ranks of practitioners. The desolate realm. This is the power of crying blood, I whispered. The system fed me the details. Wurunes focused on the physical body. Others converted spiritual energy into ghost chi to power their runes. I converted mine into crying blood energy. I looked at the simple, ancient red line on my hand and grinned. I felt like I could punch a hole through a truck. I was strong, ridiculously strong, but I needed more points to finish the rest of the runes. That meant killing specters or fixing runes for others. Thinking about how I'd passed out after fixing Uncle Wong's rune, I sighed. That was a problem for tomorrow. I wiped the sweat away and pushed the door open, a smile on my face. The guys in the shop froze. They looked at me with pure horror. What? I asked, feeling great. Is there something on my face? I'd forgotten one thing. I hadn't wiped off the blood that had sprayed across my face and clothes during the carving. In the dim light of the factory, my grin looked like something out of a nightmare. Brother Sean, did you kill another chicken? One of them stammered. My face soured. Idiots. I walked out of the factory and started to run. I moved like a gale of wind. For the first time, I truly understood why everyone was desperate to become a practitioner. The difference between me now and me 10 minutes ago was the difference between heaven and earth. I reached my apartment complex in minutes, not even winded. I burst through the door, but Su Dong and Su Xiao weren't there. They were probably at Uncle Wong's next door. I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror, covered in blood. I took a quick shower, threw on clean clothes, and knocked on Wang Bing's door. Lili opened it, her face clouded with worry. I stepped inside and my hand instinctively twitched toward my waist. The living room was crowded. Wang Bing and Qingqing were there, but across from them sat Wu Yun and Jiang Yui. My siblings were sitting quietly at the dining table. The atmosphere was heavy enough to suffocate a man. Wu Yun and Jiang Yui looked up, surprised to see me. What's with the long faces? I asked Li, trying to lighten the mood. Does someone owe us money? Don't talk nonsense, she whispered, her eyes darting to the guests. Lili glared at me, her eyes sharp as she grabbed my arm and dragged me toward the center of the living room. She forced a smile and gestured toward me. This is Su Shan, she said, introducing me to the guests. Jiang Yui adjusted his glasses and chuckled, looking me up and down. No need for introductions. I've heard plenty about you. He leaned forward, a playful glint in his eyes. Young and promising. I heard you even managed to break through Wu Yun's defenses today. Wu Yun's face went dark. He stayed silent, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. Li and Wang Bing, however, stared at me with their jaws dropped. They looked like they'd just seen a ghost. I could tell what they were thinking. Did I really just crack the defense of a high-level practitioner like Wu Yun? It was just luck, I said flatly. I kept my face expressionless, showing nothing. Jiang Yui didn't stop. Su Shan, 18 years old, a survivor of the West District riots 10 years ago. Lost both parents. You have a younger brother and sister. Captain Wang looked after you. You dropped out of school at 14 to work on East Street. Now, you run your own repair shop staffed by orphans like yourself. Correct? My eyes narrowed into slits. He'd investigated me. My heart rate spiked, and instinctively, the 5 patterns on the back of my hand flared with light. A thick, violent surge of blood energy erupted from my body. I didn't hide it. I let the power flow. I was attribute-less, and I had just carved my patterns. I figured these two would care more about my strange situation than Qingqing's ghost play talent. When did you carve your patterns? Wang Bing and Wu Yun both bolted upright, shouting the question at the same time. Their faces weren't filled with anger, but with pure, unadulterated shock and joy. Wu Yun looked stunned. It had only been 3 hours since we left the school. In that tiny window, I'd managed to carve my own patterns, and I was supposed to be a physical body type. The power vibrating off me right now was way beyond what a simple physical type should be capable of. To him, I was suddenly the ultimate prospect. Wang Bing felt it was even more ridiculous. He'd seen me run off right after school. Now I show up, and I'm already a practitioner? I didn't say a word. I just stared Jiang Yui down. Jiang Yui's eyes flickered with surprise, though he hid it better than the others. He knew I had secrets, but in our world, every practitioner has secrets. You don't pry unless you want to make a mortal enemy. As the commander of Yuan City, he was more happy to have a new talent under his wing than he was interested in interrogating me. He calmly took a sip of his tea and smiled. I've investigated you. What are you going to do about it? I'm sitting right here. If you can kill me, go ahead. I won't complain. He looked at Wu Yun and Wang Bing. Old Wu, Captain Wang, move aside. I want to see if this kid actually has the guts. He looked back at me, his voice turning cold. But let's be clear. If you can't even scratch me, I'm taking Wang Qingqing with me. And your siblings, too. Based on your file, you're a dangerous element. Your brother and sister shouldn't grow up in an environment like this. Wu Yun and Wang Bing shared a look and sat back down, leaving me alone in the center of the room. I didn't lash out. Instead, I let out a short, dry laugh. Was your head kicked by a donkey when you were a kid? The room went silent. Zhang Yi almost choked on his tea. You're setting a trap for me. I continued, my voice steady. If I hurt you, you'll use your petty grudges to make my life hell. If I don't, you take my family away. You're the commander of Yuan City. Don't you think this is a bit beneath you? Just tell me what you actually want. Zhang Yi stared at me. He expected me to attack, not to insult his intelligence. Suddenly, Wu Yun burst out laughing, his face turning beet red. Ha! Kid, how did you know? His head really was kicked by a donkey when he was little. Ha! The atmosphere shifted instantly. Li Li and Wang Bing were biting their lips, trying desperately not to laugh. I looked at Zhang Yi. So it was true. No wonder he tried to act so deep and mysterious. Zhang Yi's face was black as soot. He slammed his teacup down. Fine. I'll be direct. Su Shun, tell me about that black blade of yours. And these patterns. What's the story? He was hooked. He'd even put the issue with Qingqing aside for a moment. A physical body, type with this kind of aura, was something he'd never seen. And that blade, it had actually cut Wu Yun. A high-level practitioner being wounded by an unawakened kid with a scrap metal knife was something that couldn't be ignored. I walked over to Qingqing, sat down next to her, and leaned back comfortably. What's in it for me if I tell you? What do you want? Zhang Yi asked. He realized he wasn't dealing with a teenager. He was dealing with a street-smart negotiator. Waive my siblings' tuition fees, I said. And I want a monthly subsidy for them. Zhang Yi frowned. The children who lost parents in the West District were supposed to get subsidies years ago. You didn't get them? I let out a cold, sharp laugh. Get them? We got a little bit at the start. Then they started giving us supplies instead of money. Then, the people in charge just disappeared. That's your subsidy system for you. Zhang Yi's brow furrowed deep. He looked at Wang Bing, who gave a grim nod. Wu Yun didn't wait. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number, his voice low and raspy with fury. Check the West District subsidies from 10 years ago. Every single cent, find out where the money went. Now, he looked ready to rip someone's head off. Back then, the people of the West District fought to the death to keep the monsters from spreading to the rest of the city. To think someone stole the money meant for their orphans was an insult he couldn't stomach. I agree, Zhang Yi said, his voice solemn. And I'll make sure every cent you missed is paid back to you. Double. I nodded, then pointed at Qingqing. One more thing. Nobody touches her. Wang Bing smiled, looking satisfied with my protective streak. Su Shun, you misunderstood. They didn't come here to take Qingqing away. I looked at Zhang Yi with pure suspicion. He nodded back. The disaster caused by the previous person with her talent was horrific, Zhang Yi explained. But we can't blame the child for the sins of the past. Ghost play is dangerous, but as long as we monitor her mental health, she should be fine. I caught the hidden meaning in his words. Mental health? Did the person before her go crazy? What exactly happened? Zhang Yi and Wu Yun exchanged a look. After a long silence, Zhang Yi spoke. The ghost play talent can only carve patterns related to the underworld or myths of the dead. Currently, there are only 2 known patterns for it in the country. One is a mysterious spear. The other is the one that caused the disaster. It's called Soul Snatcher. Soul Snatcher, I muttered. The name itself felt cold. Patterns affect the user's mind, Zhang Yi continued. Captain Wang's Ghost Wolf makes him more aggressive and warlike. But Soul Snatcher amplifies the darkness in a person's heart. One wrong move, one bad day, and you fall into the abyss. We checked Qingqing's history. That's why we're here. This little girl's heart is pure, Zhang Yi said, his voice softening as he looked at Qingqing. Her life experiences show almost no darkness. The chance of her developing psychological issues is slim. I nodded. I understood what he meant now. I patted my chest confidently. No problem. I'll be her guarantor. If anything goes wrong, you come to me. The others looked at me with strange expressions. I could tell what they were thinking. If Qingqing actually did cause trouble, I'd probably be the first person helping her run away from the authorities. Now that's settled, Jiang Yi said, turning his gaze back to me. About you. Stop, I interrupted, waving a hand. You guys let her go because it was the right thing to do. Return valid JSON only. It had nothing to do with my request. So, that deal doesn't count. I still want something. Jiang Yi's face twitched. I could tell he was fighting the urge to slap me across the room. He gritted his teeth. What else do you want? Wu Yin was laughing internally. He loved seeing Jiang Yi get toyed with by a street punk like me. I might be impulsive, but I was definitely his kind of person. My smile faded. I looked them straight in the eyes, my voice becoming dead serious. I want to go to university. The room went silent. Everyone stared at me. Wang Bing's eyes filled with a pained sort of sympathy. Only he knew how much I truly craved an education. I had missed out on my youth because of the burdens I carried and my stubborn pride. I didn't want to owe him any more money, so I had stopped going to school at 14. I refused to let him spend another cent on my tuition. Jiang Yi's anger evaporated. Going to school? It sounded simple, but for someone in my position, it was a mountain. Tuition was expensive, and the materials needed to build a foundation for cultivation cost a fortune. Wang Bing was an honest captain. He didn't take bribes. Supporting 3 kids on his salary was already a miracle. I had been waiting for an opportunity like this. These 2 men had high status. They could help me. I had tried to teach myself about cultivation and tattoo artistry online, but everything on the internet was fake or useless. To actually learn, I needed to be in a professional institution. You don't have a high school diploma, Jiang Yi said gravely, his narrow eyes searching mine. It's difficult. Even if I pull strings, you'd only get into a third-rate college. They won't have the resources you need. Unless I show you I'm worth the investment, right? I smiled faintly. Wu Yin looked at me with surprise. For a kid, I understood the world of trade-offs all too well. I'm a tattoo artist, I said quietly. Is that enough? The air in the room seemed to freeze. Wu Yin and Jiang Yi both stood up, their faces shifting between shock and disbelief. A tattoo artist? Wu Yin gasped. Stop joking. Yuanqing hasn't produced a new tattoo artist in 2 years. Qingqing looked at me like I'd lost my mind. She poked me in the ribs. Brother, stop bragging. I ignored her and looked at Wang Bing. Uncle Wang, show them. The 2 officials turned their gazes toward Wang Bing, their eyes filled with a desperate kind of hope. Wang Bing sighed and nodded. He's telling the truth. He unbuttoned his shirt. As his ghostly energies surged, the wolf head pattern began to glow. Those eyes, vivid and haunting, seemed to come alive. Jiang Yi lunged forward, squinting so hard his eyes almost disappeared. The lines haven't fully merged with the old tissue yet, Jiang Yi muttered, his voice trembling. This is a brand new modification. Sushin did this. He didn't want to believe it. A kid who hadn't even finished high school was a master of the craft? But if it were true, the entire city of Yuanqing would benefit. He did, Wang Bing confirmed. He passed out immediately after finishing it. And then, I broke through to the next level. That makes sense, Wu Yin added. If he really did this, the mental strain would be massive. Your level is far higher than his. Every stroke he made on your body must have drained his soul. He's lucky he didn't turn into an idiot. I felt a chill run down my spine. No wonder I had blacked out so hard back then. Jiang Yi finally smiled and sat back down. He looked at me for a long time, saying nothing. I took the hint. I raised my right hand and let my blood energy vibrate. A blood-red mark appeared on the back of my hand, a single, elegant stroke of a level 5 pattern. It pulsed with a strange, ancient rhythm. Is this enough? I asked again. It's enough, Jiang Yi said, his eyes locked on the mark. I agree to your request, but you still have to take the entrance exam. I can't just let someone in for free. However, I'll lower the academic requirement for you. You only need to hit half of the passing score. Deal, I said, a grin finally breaking across my face. Can I see that knife of yours? Wu Yin asked suddenly. Sure. I tossed it to him without a second thought. I knew he wouldn't find anything. Wang Bing had studied that blade for hours and found nothing but a piece of scrap metal. It only became something special when it was in my hands. Wu Yin poked and prodded the black blade, looking more confused by the second. He couldn't figure out how this piece of junk had managed to break through his defenses earlier. Eventually, He sighed and handed it back. I felt a wave of relief. My secret was safe. Once the business was done, the two officials hurried off. I don't know if it was the strain of showing the pattern or the lingering exhaustion from my awakening, but I felt a crushing weight of sleepiness. I crashed onto Wang Bing's sofa and was out in seconds. I slept until noon the next day. I was woken up by my phone screaming in my ear. Shinji, it's bad, a voice yelled from the other end. Someone's here to wreck the shop. They broke Little Monkey's arm. I was awake instantly. My eyes went cold and dark. I headed straight for the North District, toward my repair shop on East Street. A crowd had already gathered outside. People were whispering, wondering who was brave enough, or stupid enough, to mess with my place. Who are these guys? Someone asked. I don't know. They showed up this morning with pipes and bats, another replied. I heard Sushin beat up some rich CEO's son at school yesterday. This must be the payback. I heard he pulled a knife on a new fireguard captain. The crowd parted as I approached. Standing at my shop door was Yang Dian. His head was wrapped in so many bandages he looked like a misshapen Zongzi, with only his eyes and mouth peeking out. Behind him stood 12 massive, bald thugs holding steel pipes. They weren't just street thugs. I could feel the energy coming off them. Every one of them was a cultivator. Even Yang Dian had somehow become one overnight. Where is he? Yang Dian roared, sitting arrogantly on a chair in front of my shop. Tell Su Shun to get his ass out here right now. Inside the shop, my crew looked terrified. They were just regular guys. I stepped forward, my grip tightening on the black knife hidden at my waist. It was time to remind everyone why they called me the Skullcracker King. Inside the shop, one of my guys was huddled in the corner, clutching his arm. It was twisted at a sickening angle, definitely a clean break. You're cultivators now, he shouted, his voice trembling but brave. How could you lay a hand on us? One of the massive thugs let out a mocking sneer. I'm just here waiting for Su Shun. If your arm happened to get in the way of my pipe, that's your problem. Besides, look at you. You've got a bit of ghost aura and some seal markings on you. You aren't exactly normal people anymore. He was right. In this world, once you've gone through the awakening, you're no longer considered a civilian, no matter how weak your power is. Xiao Ho, hang in there. Another shop hand whispered, supporting the injured boy. Shinji is coming. Xiao Ho gritted his teeth and nodded, his eyes burning with hatred as he stared at the thugs blocking the door. Is this kid ever coming? One of the bald men grumbled, checking his phone. I'm losing my patience. He didn't even finish the sentence. Thud! A heavy sound echoed behind them. The thugs spun around to find one of their companions already flat on the ground, clutching a skull that was gushing blood. Who the hell did? The leader didn't get to finish. A small black blur zoomed through the air, expanding in his vision until it slammed directly into the bridge of his nose. His face buckled, his eyes rolled back, and he collapsed into the dirt, unconscious before he hit the floor. The crowd gasped. The people of East Street knew I was coming, but they'd never seen me like this. One brick, one cultivator down. It didn't make sense. The kid is here, the man who broke Xiao Ho's arm roared, his face darkening. He scanned the crowd like a predator. Su Shun, if you're a man, stop hiding and fight me face to face. Yang Dian scrambled up from his chair, his bandaged head shaking with fury. He wasn't the sniveling coward from yesterday anymore. He looked confident, dangerous. Whoosh. Another brick whistled through the air, aimed straight for Yang Dian's wrapped head. The sound of it cutting the wind was terrifying. Watch out, one of the bald thugs barked. He stepped forward, his skin suddenly glowing with a coarse, boar-like seal mark. He swung a steel pipe with everything he had. Crack. The brick shattered into dust. But it was a distraction. Thud, thud, thud. 3 more dull impacts followed instantly. 3 more bald heads erupted in blood. They dropped like stones, their bodies twitching on the pavement. In seconds, 12 men had been cut down to 6, and they hadn't even seen my face yet. See that? Lu Jian whispered to Wang Lu in the crowd, his face pale. That's why you don't mess with a beast like Su Shun. Su Shun, get out here, Yang Dian screamed. He ripped his shirt open, and a surge of energy exploded from his body, kicking up a localized windstorm. He was significantly stronger than the thugs. An eagle-shaped seal mark glowed on his chest. It was simple, almost unfinished, but the power was real. The crowd looked on with envy. That was the Sky Eagle seal, a high-grade mirror realm marking that cost a fortune on the black market. It granted the user claws like steel, incredible speed, and control over the wind. I watched him from the shadows of the crowd, my hat pulled low. In our world, powers are ranked from soul, to mirror, to destruction. A high-grade mirror realm technique was a big deal for someone like him. I looked at my own hands. I didn't know what rank my 5 seals or 9 officials were, but I could feel it deep in my gut. This eagle was a pigeon compared to me. I picked up another brick and tossed it. Crunch. Another bald head hit the floor. Yang Dian was losing his mind. He was spinning in circles, screaming at the air. The lead thug, the one who'd hurt Xiao Ho, stepped forward and grabbed a pipe. If you don't show yourself right now, I'm breaking the kid's other arm. I'll count to 3. 3, 2. He never made it to 1. The man froze. He looked down at his wrist. A black short blade was buried clean through the bone, pinning his arm to the air for a split second before the pain registered. Ah! His scream was blood-curdling. He fell to his knees, his body convulsing in agony. The crowd went silent. They'd seen me fight before, but this was different. This was cold. I stepped out of the shadows, my hat still low. I walked right up to him and gripped the handle of the knife. In one fluid motion, I ripped it out. Stab! 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 Before anyone could blink, I drove the blade into his other wrist and both of his thighs. Blood pooled on the concrete, staining the shop and trance a deep crimson. Sorry about that, I said, my voice calm and conversational. I looked down at him with a small smile. I wasn't sure which limb you used to hit my friend, so I figured I'd just take them all. You don't mind, do you? I slammed my boot onto his chest, pinning him down, while my other foot stepped directly onto his mangled wrist. He let out a choked wail, his eyes wide with a terror that only comes when you realize you're facing a genuine monster. He's a psycho, someone whispered. Yang Dian stood frozen. His fancy eagle seal faded away as his legs began to shake. He stared at the blood on the ground, his bravado completely evaporated. I looked at the remaining thugs. Thud, thud, thud. They didn't even wait for me to move. They dropped to their knees, their faces twisted into pathetic, tearful smiles. Brother Sue, please. We were just here for the show. We didn't touch anyone. 500,000, I said flatly. You can take him away now. If you get him to a hospital in the next 10 minutes, he might keep his limbs. Maybe. I'll pay. I'll pay. The man under my boot gasped, his voice weak. Get lost, I growled. I delivered a sharp kick to his side. His 200-pound frame lifted off the ground like a soccer ball, slamming into his kneeling buddies. The onlookers winced at the sheer physical power of the strike. Don't even think about skipping out on the bill, I said, eyeing the survivors. I know where you live. They nodded frantically, sobbing as they scooped up their mangled boss and scrambled to run. Wait. The word stopped them like a physical wall. They turned back, trembling. Yes, Brother Sue. Anything else? My man's medical bills. I pointed to Xiao Ho. You're paying for those too. Take him with you and make sure he gets the best doctors. Yes, of course. Right away. They practically carried Xiao Ho to their van, treating him like royalty as they sped off. The street went quiet. Only Yang Jian was left, standing alone in the wind, his bandages fluttering. His legs were shaking so hard I thought he might collapse. Shinji. I was wrong, he stammered. I'll give you the money. Just let me go. I'm a dog. I'm a loser. My dad's company is failing anyway. I'm nothing. I walked up to him, looking him in the eye. Your name is Yang Dian, right? Yes, yes. Do you have a brother named Yang Feng? He blinked, confused. My older brother is Yang Feng. What? I went silent for a moment. Their father really was a genius at naming kids. Yang Feng and Yang Dian, madness and epilepsy. I reached out and grabbed the blood-stained gauze wrapped around his head. Let's talk about that 50,000, shall we? I grabbed Yang Dian by the collar and dragged him across the pavement toward my repair shop. San, close the doors, I barked. The heavy metal shutters rattled down, sealing us inside. Yang Dian started wailing, the sound echoing off the concrete walls. He looked like he was seconds away from wetting himself. Why are you closing the doors? He sobbed. Is this it? Am I dying today? Outside, the crowd went silent. They stared at the closed shutters, wondering if I was actually going to end him right there in the office. I didn't say a word. I tossed him onto the sofa like a sack of trash and sat down in my desk chair. I stared at him, noticing the dark patch spreading on his trousers. I felt a wave of disgust. "Talk," I said, my voice cold. "Who's backing you?" He froze, his trembling subsiding for a split second. How did you know?" I pulled out my black blade and started flipping it between my fingers. "You brought a dozen guys to start a riot on the main street. Usually, the new fire guards would be here in minutes. It's been 20, and not a single soul has shown up. Someone cleared the way for you. Was it the fat guy?" "Zhang Ling." Yang Dian's eyes went wide. The fear in his gaze deepened. He couldn't believe I'd figured it out just by the lack of sirens. "I'll take that as a yes," I muttered. A surge of genuine malice flickered in my chest. Part of me wanted to find a dark alley and end Zhang Ling right now. My Uncle Wang said Zhang Ling was a hack who only got his captain position through family connections. His actual power level was probably no better than the thugs I'd just thrashed. But I checked myself. Killing a captain would bring a mountain of trouble I wasn't ready for yet. I didn't know the full extent of his network or who this commander uncle of his really was. I pulled out my phone and dialed Wu Yun. He and Jiang Yuyi had both left me their numbers before they took off earlier. "Who is this?" Wu Yun's gravelly voice answered. "It's me, Su Shan. What do you want?" "I'm busy. There's a new fire guard captain named Zhang Ling," I said. "Who's his backer?" "Some former commander." The line went quiet for a moment. "What about him?" "He's looking for trouble," I said, my voice dropping an octave. "I'm thinking about paying him a permanent visit." "Don't be stupid," Wu Yun snapped. "Zhang Ling's uncle was the previous city commander. You're just a kid with no background. You can't take him down without ruining your life." He sounded genuinely worried I'd go rogue. I knew why. Wu Yun had investigated me. He knew that back in the old city outskirts, I'd once encountered a human trafficker, a man with actual spiritual cultivation who was wounded and on the run. The guy thought I was an easy target because of my age. I'd ended up smashing his skull in with a rock. Wu Yun saw that same darkness in me. "Look," Wu Yun continued, trying to de-escalate. "I'll handle it. I'll assign him a mission far outside the city, so he won't be around to bother you. How does that sound?" "You have that kind of authority?" I asked skeptically. "I'm a chief captain. Of course I have the authority. Just wait for the news. If he's still in the city tomorrow, you can do whatever you want." He hung up. I sat there in silence, deciding to trust him for now. Beside me, Yang Dian was a mess. His hearing had sharpened since his awakening, and he'd heard every word of the conversation. He realized I was casually discussing the assassination of a government official. "Brother Su, please," he blubbered, dropping to his knees and grabbing my leg. "Don't kill me. I'll give you 50,000, no, 1,000,000. Just let me live." I looked down at him, my lip curling. I hadn't actually planned on killing him. I just wanted to rattle him. But seeing him like this gave me an idea. I forced a friendly smile. "Brother Su, please don't smile like that. It's scarier," he whimpered. "Little Dian," I said, patting his bandaged head. "I can let you go, but I have a condition." "Anything. Name it." "Take off your shirt." "Huh." Outside the office, my workers heard the exchange. Their faces went pale. "Brother Su, no. Please. Not there. It hurts." A sharp scream rang out, followed by the sound of fabric tearing. My employees backed away from the door, looking at each other in shock. "I didn't know Brother Su was into that," one whispered. "Doesn't he have a childhood sweetheart?" Brother Su, it's so hot. Stop. Don't stop." The screaming transitioned into a bizarre, ecstatic shout. "Brother Su, what is this? You can do this? Please, don't stop. I'll give you 3,000,000. Just keep going." The workers stood frozen, their expressions a mix of confusion and horror. The door finally clicked open. I stepped out, looking satisfied, my eyes half squinted as if I'd just finished a long workout. Behind me, Yang Dian emerged shirtless. There were light streaks of blood on his back, and he'd ripped off his head bandages. His swollen face was glowing with pure, unadulterated joy. In those few minutes, he had broken through to the mid-stage of the spirit realm. All because of a few scratches I'd made on his back with my blade. I wasn't just a fighter. I understood the flow of spiritual marks. I'd seen masters charge a fortune to modify a family's spiritual tattoos with delicate needles and complex rituals. I did it with a black combat knife and raw instinct. It was violent, crude, and incredibly effective. Yang Dian felt the power surging through him. He realized his heavenly eagle mark had been refined. "Brother Su," Yang Dian said, stepping forward with a look of intense loyalty. "I was an idiot before. From now on, I'm your dog. You tell me to go east, I won't even look west." He pulled a bank card from his pocket and shoved it toward me. "What's this for?" I asked. "Medical bills for your friend," he said earnestly. "And the rest is for renovations. Think of it as a gift from your new little brother." My crew watched in total silence. They didn't know what I'd done in that office, but whatever it was, I turned a bitter enemy into a devoted follower in less than 10 minutes. "Are you serious?" I asked, raising an eyebrow at Yang Dian. He nodded vigorously, his eyes wide with desperate sincerity. I just shook my head and turned away. "We'll talk later," I said, pushing open the shop door and walking out. I didn't see the look on his face, but I knew he was thrilled. To a guy like him, a maybe later wasn't a rejection, it was a test. He probably figured if he performed well enough, he'd earn his spot as my lackey. He wasn't stupid. He knew the value of a spiritual mark engraver. If his father found out he was following a future master, the old man would probably give him a medal instead of a lecture. As I walked away, Yang Dian flashed a grin and lunged toward one of the guys from the repair shop, who was still standing there in a daze. He shoved the bank card into the kid's hand. "You have to take this," Yang Dian insisted. "It's a token of my appreciation." "Are you for real?" the guy stammered. "What's the pin?" "No pin. Spend it on whatever you want," Yang Dian chirped. He started humming a happy tune and strolled away, leaving my crew standing there in total confusion. The guy holding the card pulled out a portable card reader, his hands shaking. How much could even be on here? He swiped it, looked at the screen, and his eyes nearly popped out of his skull. 5 million. Meanwhile, I was blocks away, leaning against a concrete pillar under a secluded bridge. I closed my eyes, checking my internal status. My engraving points had hit 50. Back in the office, I'd experimented on Yang Dian's back, carving 5 distinct lines. I didn't actually know the specific patterns for the heavenly eagle mark, but I used my own understanding of flow and aesthetics. 5 strokes, no more, no less. I was surprised I hadn't blacked out. My head was swimming and my vision felt blurry, but I was still standing. 5 strokes seemed to be my current limit before I completely overtaxed my system. Interestingly, those 5 strokes on Yang Dian gave me the same amount of points as that single stroke I'd carved on Uncle Wang. It clicked then. The points I earned were tied to the cultivation level of the person I was editing. Uncle Wang was at the peak of the fire realm when I worked on him, which was why 1 stroke nearly killed me. Yang Dian was only in the early spirit realm, so it wasn't as draining. I had a reason for not rejecting Yang Dian immediately. I needed a guinea pig to test my limits, and I needed to see what kind of person he really was. If he turned out to be decent, I wouldn't mind helping him refine his marks. But I'd never give an enemy the chance to get stronger. I thought about the people around me. Uncle Wang, Li Li, Ching Ching, and now Yang Dian. I could help them grow while farming points for myself. But Uncle Wang was already at the worry-free stage. His power was too much for me to handle right now. My younger siblings, Su Dong and Su Xia, were still too young to awaken. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was Uncle Wang. "Where the hell are you?" he barked as soon as I picked up. "Get your ass back here. We have to be at the experimental high school today." I slapped my forehead. I'd been so focused on dealing with Yang Dian that I'd completely forgotten. The day after the awakening ceremony, all students had to gather at the city's library to choose their cultivation techniques. Before that, the principal had to explain how to pick a manual and the dangers of doing it wrong. If you practiced blindly, you could end up brain dead. "I'm on my way," I told him. "I'm already nearby." While I headed toward the school, things were getting loud at the Yang Group headquarters. Yang Dian was currently hammering on the door of the CEO's office on the top floor. Dad, open up." Inside, Yang Dingtian jumped, nearly knocking over his secretary. He scrambled to straighten his suit and opened the door, ready to roar. "You little brat, what are you screaming for?" He stopped mid-sentence. His eyes went wide. "Son, you broke through?" He was stunned. His son had actually reached the mid-stage of the spirit realm. But then he noticed the state of him. Why does your face look like a bruised eggplant? Yang Dian ignored the insult and slammed the door shut behind him. Dad, listen. Remember how I got jumped? Well, let me tell you what happened. He spilled everything. When he finished, Yang Dingtian looked at him with pure skepticism. An 18-year-old engraver? Are you messing with me? Did they hit you so hard you lost your mind? Yang Dian knew his dad wouldn't believe him. Without a word, he ripped his new t-shirt open. He surged his spiritual energy, and the heavenly eagle totem flared to life on his skin. The aura of a mid-stage spirit realm cultivator filled the room. Yang Dingtian's expression shifted from annoyance to dead seriousness. He fell silent, his mind racing. Finally, he placed a heavy hand on his son's shoulder. Son, he said deeply, you've grown up. This is the smartest thing you've ever done. If what you're saying is true, nobody else has realized how special this Sushan is yet. This is our best chance to tie him to our family. He paused. Aren't you supposed to be at the library to pick a technique? Why would I go? Yang Dian scratched his head. We already have the techniques matched to the heavenly eagle mark at home. Yang Dingtian slapped the back of his son's head. I'm telling you to go be by Sushan's side. Go build a relationship, you idiot. Oh, right. Yang Dian didn't even bother putting on a shirt. He just turned and bolted out the door. And don't play games, his father yelled after him. Be sincere. Once the boy was gone, Yang Dingtian sat on his sofa, lost in thought. His secretary peeked out from behind the desk. What's wrong? Go investigate a kid named Su Shun on the East Street, he ordered. If he's not dangerous, find out what he needs. Whatever it is, we give it to him. The secretary blinked. Since when are you so generous? Yang Dingtian rolled his eyes. That's why you're just a secretary. Your vision is too small. Money is nothing compared to the favor of a future master engraver. By 3 p.m., I arrived at the experimental high school. I had a baseball cap pulled low over my eyes and my hands in my pockets as I blended into the crowd on the playground. Most of the kids there were the ones who had awakened the day before. Wait, is that Su Shun? He's here, someone shouted. I sighed. I hadn't even reached the center of the crowd, and they'd already spotted me. I took off my hat and gave them a small, tired smile. Hey guys. The entire group took a synchronized step backward. The memory of me slamming Yang Dian's head into the pavement was still fresh in their minds. The crater I'd made in the concrete was literally right over there. What's with the faces? I asked, rubbing my chin. I'm a very peaceful person. Why are you looking at me like I'm a ghost? Right, Lu Jian? I looked at Lu Jian, who was standing nearby. He gave me a stiff, terrified nod and a smile that looked like it hurt his face. I got bored and sat down on some nearby steps to wait. Seeing that I wasn't planning on murdering anyone else today, the other students relaxed a bit, though they kept their voices low. A few minutes later, 2 more figures approached. Wang Qingqing walked with her usual calm grace, but there was a guy following her, head bowed, talking incessantly in a sycophantic tone. It was Yang Dian. Sister-in-law, I am so sorry about yesterday, he was saying. I was being a total prick. Please don't hold it against me. I'm Brother Su's little brother now, which means your word is law to me. Qingqing looked like she wanted to disappear. If you call me sister-in-law one more time, I will punch you myself. She honestly wondered if I'd broken his brain. I watched from the steps and grinned. The kid was a quick learner. The other students were losing their minds. They couldn't wrap their heads around it. Yesterday, I nearly killed the guy, and today he was following me around like a devoted puppy. They didn't get it, but Yang Dian didn't care what those losers thought. He spotted me sitting there, and his eyes lit up. He ditched Qingqing and came sprinting toward me. Boss, I'm here. Yang Dian came sprinting toward me like I was his long-lost father. I looked him up and down. The kid looked eager, but I noticed he was empty-handed. Doesn't your family have any cultivation techniques for you? I asked. Why are you hanging around here? Yang Dian gave me a cheeky grin. Hey, I'm just here to hang out. Besides, I had to come and apologize to my sister-in-law. I nodded, and Qingqing walked over with a complicated look on her face. She stared at me, probably wondering how I'd managed to turn a school bully into a loyal servant overnight. What's up, wife? I said, patting the empty spot on the steps next to me. Qingqing rolled her eyes at me, but she didn't argue. She sat down, and the 3 of us stayed there, slightly apart from the rest of the crowd. We looked like outcasts, and honestly, that suited me just fine. At exactly 4 o'clock, Principal Ding Wentian appeared. He was still carrying that massive megaphone from yesterday. When he spotted me sitting there like some kind of mountain king, his eyes twitched, but he chose to ignore me. I assume after yesterday's awakening, your families have told you a thing or two. Ding Wentian's voice boomed through the speaker. By now, you should all feel the spiritual energy flowing into your bodies. The students nodded eagerly. Now, I need to talk about cultivation techniques, he continued. Techniques in Dharma seals are divided into 4 major ranks: soul, bright, record, and extinguish. You probably know that. But the main purpose of a technique isn't just to help you absorb energy or refine ghost chi. It's to strengthen your Dharma seals. Your seal is your foundation. Your technique determines how high that foundation can go. He paced back and forth. If you have a fire talent and a fire seal, but you practice a water technique, your power will drop by half or more. Principal, is that all techniques do? A student shouted. Of course not. Ding Wentian shook his head. They determine your capacity. A good technique lets you absorb more energy, convert it faster, and store more ghost chi. It makes your seals more powerful. Sir, another student called out. Why do we have to convert it to ghost chi? Why can't we just use the spiritual energy directly? I perked up at that. I was curious too. Ding Wentian had clearly answered this 1,000 times. Spiritual energy isn't pure like it is in novels. In its raw form, it's toxic to humans. Back when the recovery first started, people tried to use it directly. They couldn't filter out the weird energy inside it. They all turned into corpse ghosts. He paused for effect. Ghost chi is the other half of that energy. It's cold and eerie, but it doesn't harm us. Over generations, we developed techniques to filter the raw energy and keep only the ghost chi. Think of raw spiritual energy as a blend of 2 powers. We can only safely handle one. A student with glasses looked thoughtful. So, it's like 2 forces fused together, and we can only take one? Exactly, the principal said. I looked down, my eyes narrowing. If that was true, then something was wrong with me. When I carved my 5 seals, I hadn't filtered anything. I'd absorbed the whole damn thing. How many of you have already carved your seals? Ding Wentian asked. A few kids from wealthy families raised their hands, Yang Dian included. Good. What did it feel like? As soon as the energy entered my body during the carving, it automatically turned into ghost chi, one student said. He raised his hand, and dark lines glowed on his skin. Pshhh. A ball of eerie green flame flickered into existence above his palm. Correct, Ding Wentian said. The seal helps filter the energy. It works in tandem with your technique. Just as he finished speaking, the sky suddenly went dark. The ground beneath us groaned and shuddered. A split second later, a massive pillar of light erupted from the center of the city, piercing straight into the clouds. A deep, resonant sound like a giant brass bell echoed through the air. Ding Wentian smiled. Perfect timing. It's time. Follow me to the city library to choose your techniques. He waved his hand and led the crowd toward the school gates. Let's go, Ching said, standing up. She noticed I was still sitting there, silent. What's wrong? Yang Dian looked at me too. My hand was resting on the hilt of the black blade at my waist. The sword was vibrating. It was a cold, sharp feeling that traveled up my arm. The last time the blade acted like this, I'd found a corpse ghost. Something's happening, I muttered. What? Ching asked, confused. Boom, boom, boom. 3 massive explosions ripped through the air just outside the school grounds. Screams and panicked shouts broke out instantly. Mixed in with the human cries were low, guttural growls, sounds that didn't belong to anything living. Crap, I hissed. My blood went cold. I grabbed Ching's hand and spun around. Don't ask questions. Run. I glanced at Yang Dian, who was frozen in shock. If you don't want to die, stay close to me. Move. High above the city, sirens began to wail, a piercing sound that sliced through the chaos. Warning! Warning! An electronic voice boomed over the city speakers. Major explosions and fissures detected in the north and south districts. Corpse ghosts are emerging. All citizens stay indoors. New fire guards deploy immediately. The city was falling into madness. Smoke billowed into the sunset, turning the sky a bruised purple. In a high-rise building overlooking the districts, a man named Wu Yun stared at a wall of monitors. His face was twisted with rage. Who the hell is doing this now? They timed it. Another man, Jiang Yuyi, said as he walked in, his expression grim. They waited for the library to open to blow the seals and lure the ghosts in. This was planned. Wu Yun grabbed his sword. Wait, Jiang Yuyi stopped him. The guards at the library cannot be moved. We have to protect the techniques until the doors are locked. If we don't move them, we don't have enough men. Wu Yun snapped. We have 2 deep ghost-level entities on the loose already. The library is the heart of this city, Jiang Yuyi said, his voice cold and final. It cannot fall. Wu Yun didn't say another word. He vanished through the door. Back at the school, the chaos had already arrived. Crack. Principal Ding Wentian threw a punch that literally exploded a humanoid corpse ghost. Rotting, black blood sprayed across his chest. His clothes were torn, and his body seemed to have doubled in size, muscles bulging like a tank. An elephant-shaped Dharma seal glowed on his skin, 2 flickers of ghostly fire dancing within the lines. But for every ghost he crushed, 3 more seemed to crawl out of the shadows. The ceremony was over. The fight for survival had just begun. Everyone get inside the teaching building. Now, Principal Ding Wentian's voice boomed across the campus, distorted by rage. Where are the teachers? Where the hell are they? He stood like a god of war at the school gates, his body wreathed in thick, ghostly energy. Every corpse ghost that tried to claw its way past him was pulverized by a single, bone-shattering punch. But as the words left his mouth, a deafening crash echoed behind him. The teaching building collapsed. Dust and debris exploded into the air as 3 figures drenched in blood burst from the ruins. Right on their heels, 3 rotting beasts, each the size of a heavy truck, roared as they lunged into the open. Principal, these bastards were already inside, a male teacher screamed. Before he could even finish his sentence, a tiger-shaped corpse ghost swiped at him. The impact caved in his chest instantly, sending him flying through the air like a broken doll. He hit the ground and didn't move again. Damn it! Ding Wentian's eyes turned blood red. The students, who had been trying to flee, were forced back toward the center of the playground. They were shaking, paralyzed by a fear they had only heard about in stories from 10 years ago. Now, the nightmare was real. The tiger-shaped ghost turned its eyeless, hollow head toward the crowd of students. Its body was a mess of rotting meat and black bone, radiating a cold, murderous intent. Mommy, I don't want to die, someone wailed. The sight of that massive, eyeless predator was enough to break their spirits completely. Suddenly, a flash of blade light fell from the sky. Die! A scruffy young man leaped over the school wall and landed firmly between the students and the beast. I recognized him immediately from my spot in the storage room. It was Sun Yun, one of Uncle Wang's new fire guards. He was at the Guxin realm, roughly the same strength as the teacher who had just died. Hold the line. Sun Yun roared, his voice low and guttural. Wait for reinforcements. He charged the beast, swinging his blade with everything he had. Clang, his eyes widened. A full-strength strike had only managed to leave a tiny crack on the creature's bone. The tiger ghost didn't flinch. Its tail lashed out like a spear, catching Sun Yun in the ribs and sending him tumbling across the pavement. He coughed up a spray of dark blood but forced himself back to his feet, his teeth gritted in pain. Third tier, Zhanghua realm, Sun Yun whispered, his chest heaving. The patterns on his skin flickered wildly. Su Shun, what do we do? Wang Qingqing's voice trembled beside me. I stayed silent, watching the carnage through the crack in the door. After a long moment, I turned to her. Stay here. Don't make a sound. Don't go out. I looked at Yang Dian. Watch her. If she tries to run out. Boss, don't worry, Yang Dian said, his face pale but determined. He knew staying with her was safer than facing what was outside. Su Shun, what are you? I didn't let her finish. I hit her with a quick strike to the neck, knocking her out instantly. I laid her down gently in the corner and gave Yang Dian one last look before slipping out the door. The storage room wasn't far from the playground. I could get back if things went south, and with Li Li at home, I knew my family was safe for now. I ducked behind a massive decorative rock and took a deep breath. The cultivation method for the 9 gates of the underworld immortal flashed in my mind. I had planned to wait until I knew more about this world to start, but time had run out. I already had the 5 marks on my skin. Stepping into the first gate was as natural as breathing. First gate, mountain barrier, I whispered. A wave of cold clarity washed over me. My vision sharpened. The spiritual energy in the air began to spiral toward me, invisible to the naked eye. Half of it surged into my veins, hardening my muscles and fueling my blood. The 5 marks on my arm glowed a deep, bruised red. The other half flooded my mind. My consciousness expanded, and a faint, ethereal shadow of a mountain appeared in my thoughts. It felt heavy. It felt ancient. I raised my right hand. The red marks pulsed with a power that felt like it could crush a peak. The shadow of the mountain in my mind seemed to anchor that strength, focusing it into my fist. It felt like a lifetime had passed, but it had only been a second. I had mastered the first gate. Crash. A body slammed into the debris right next to my hiding spot. It was Sun Yun. His blade was snapped in half, and 3 jagged claw marks ran deep across his chest. He looked up and saw me crouching behind the rock, my eyes burning with a manic intensity. Run, he wheezed, blood bubbling in his throat. Run. The tiger ghost stalked toward us, its eyeless sockets fixed on Sun Yun. It could sense his soul was the strongest one nearby. It wanted to eat him first. At the gate, Ding Wentian was torn. If he left his post to save Sun Yun, the school would be overrun. If he stayed, the guard and the students were dead. I'll kill you, you piece of trash. A roar like a thunderclap erupted from behind the rock. Everyone watched in shock as the massive boulder I had been hiding behind took flight, launched like a cannonball. It smashed directly into the tiger ghost's side, staggering the beast. I stepped out from the dust. My face was twisted, filled with nothing but raw killing intent. I didn't look like a student. I looked like a demon. I moved with a speed that blurred the air, closing the gap before the beast could recover. Su Shun, get back! Sun Yun screamed, the effort making him cough up more blood. I didn't listen. I leaped into the air, my body a projectile of pure rage. I came down on the beast from above, my right fist glowing with a single, blood-red line. Boom. The ground shook. Sun Yun's eyes nearly popped out of his head as my fist slammed the tiger ghost's skull into the pavement. The sound of cracking bone echoed across the playground. I felt my own arm fracturing under the force, but I didn't care. Die? Die? Die. I rained down punch after punch, a frenzied blur of violence. I could hear the beast's bones breaking, and I could feel my own knuckles shattering with every hit. With a guttural roar, the tiger ghost surged upward, throwing me off. Its tail whipped around, smashing into my chest with the force of a sledgehammer. I felt my ribs snap as I was sent flying. I hit the ground hard, sliding right next to Sun Yun. We both lay there, coughing up blood, broken and battered. The tiger ghost stood up, its skull cracked, but still intact. It growled, looking at me. But instead of finishing us off, it paused. It seemed to sense something terrifying, radiating from me. Without warning, the predator turned tail and ran. A flash of light cut through the air like a heavenly blade. It swept across the playground in an instant. The tiger ghost and the other monsters fighting the teachers were sliced clean in half. Uncle Wong appeared out of thin air. He was shirtless, his ghost wolf tattoos looking like they were snarling. His eyes were blood red as he scanned the carnage. Ching Ching. Where's Ching Ching? He roared. Uncle Wong was on the verge of a breakdown. As the second strongest new fire guard in Yuanshan, he had rushed here the moment he heard a high-level ghost had appeared. He had spent precious time battling another monster before sprinting to the school, terrified that his daughter and I were already dead. He saw me lying there, broken, right next to Sun Yun. Ching Ching. My daughter. Uncle Wong gripped his long blade, tilting his head back as a roar of pure agony ripped from his throat. Tears streamed down his face. You were so young. You were just... He stopped mid-sentence. He blinked, his tears drying instantly. He spun around to see Ching Ching running toward him. Ching Ching. He lunged forward and pulled her into a tight hug, checking her frantically for injuries. When he saw she was unharmed, a wave of visible relief washed over him. Boss, how could you leave us so soon? Yang Dian wailed from behind them. He scrambled toward me as I lay there, half dead. I looked like a wreck. My chest was caved in where the beast's tail had smashed my ribs. My right fist was a mess of pulp and shattered bone. I was spitting up blood, my eyes rolling back as my body twitched. Uncle Wong's eyes went red again. He rushed over, his breathing heavy, and glared at Sun Yun. "How did you let this happen?" Sun Yun looked up, his face full of confusion. "Boss, I'm literally dying over here, and you're blaming me?" Uncle Wong didn't argue. He forced Sun Yun's mouth open and popped a medicinal pill inside. Sun Yun's color returned almost instantly. "This kid, he just went toe-to-toe with that ghost," Sun Yun rasped. "Bullcrap," Uncle Wong snapped. "He's barely started his cultivation. How could he have the strength to fight a fire wielder level ghost? One slap should have turned him into dust." It's true," Yang Dian stammered. He had seen the whole thing through the cracks in the door. He was still shivering from the memory. He was just glad I had held back when I punched him earlier, or he'd have a hole in his chest. Uncle Wong stood there, stunned. He fell silent. He reached out to feed me a pill, but his hand froze halfway. Asterisk crack. Snap. Asterisk. He looked down, his pupils shrinking. My right fist, which had been nothing but a bag of broken bones, was glowing. The blood-red vein on my skin was pulsing, greedily sucking in the surrounding spiritual energy. The shattered mess was filling out. The cracking sound was the sound of my bones knitting themselves back together. Uncle Wong's expression tightened. He shoved the pill into my mouth anyway. He was deeply unsettled. Whatever was happening to me was either because of my tattoo or a forbidden technique. He gave me the pill to hide the truth. If people saw me regenerating like this without medicine, I'd be hauled off to a lab for experimentation. He took a deep breath and glanced at Ching. Then, he vanished, streaking into the sky. He couldn't stay. The city was still crawling with ghosts, and the new fire guards needed every man. With the high-level ghost dead, the school was safe for now. The principal, Ding Wentian, saw the lower-level ghosts retreating and finally let out a breath of relief. Su Shun, Ching whispered, her voice trembling with tears. She wanted to reach out and hold me, but she was terrified that even a touch would break me further. "Sister-in-law, don't worry. The boss is healing," Yang Dian comforted her. "Hey, don't touch him," Sun Yun grunted, struggling to his feet. His wounds were still bleeding, but the pill had done its work. He looked at me with a complicated expression. "This kid is a freak. He'll be back on his feet in an hour." Sun Yun limped over to the principal, spoke a few words, and was soon carried away by arriving guards for treatment. Ching wiped her eyes and sat down beside me, silent and watchful. Yang Dian stood over us like a bodyguard, his eagle tattoos glowing as he scanned for threats. "Student Wong, about Su Shun," the principal started, walking toward us. "Stay back," Ching said. Her voice was calm, but it carried a chill that even she didn't realize was there. Faint wisps of black, ghostly energy began to swirl around her. Yang Dian stepped in front of the principal, blocking his path. "What do you want?" Ding Wentian was baffled. "Why are you looking at me like I'm the enemy? My boss is healing. My sister-in-law is stressed. Just leave us alone, principal," Yang Dian said with a nervous grin. Ding Wentian didn't push it. He looked at Ching and saw something familiar in her eyes. A cold, hard determination to become strong. He smiled to himself and walked away to comfort the other students. He couldn't help but admire us. He had seen what I did to that ghost, and it had nearly made his eyes pop out of his head. A low-level cultivator nearly cracking the skull of a fire-wielder-level beast was unheard of. It was a joke, but I had done it. If a kid with my ruthlessness grew up, he'd be a monster. He realized then that giving me a spot in the high school was the best decision he'd ever made. Between my raw power and Ching's rare ghost-type talent, we were going to be legends. He looked at the pale, shaking students around him and put on a kind smile, one that looked a lot like the one I usually wore. "Students, let's keep what happened with Su Shun a secret, okay? He's a private guy. If you go blabbing about his abilities, he might come looking for you. And since he's not officially a student here yet, I can't really control him." The students turned even paler. They remembered the way I had hammered that ghost's head into the dirt and nodded in unison. No one wanted a visit from the Skullcracker King. An hour passed. The fires in the distance were dying down, though the crying continued. I finally groaned, my consciousness drifting back. The pain hit me like a tidal wave. My head felt like it was splitting, and my chest was on fire. Su-shun. I heard her voice instantly. I felt a warm tear land on the corner of my mouth. I licked it and forced a weak, painful smile. What are you crying for? I'm fine, wife. I coughed, my voice raspy. Instead of crying, why don't you give me a kiss? My eyes went wide. I didn't expect her to actually do it. But before I could finish the joke, Ching-Ching leaned down and pressed her lips against mine. The kiss was cold, but it had a hint of sweetness. It only lasted a second, and she pulled away, her face flushing a deep crimson as she looked toward the ground. The pain in my body didn't seem so bad anymore. I grinned, looking at her. That was too fast. I didn't even get to feel it. How about another one? Shut up, she snapped, though her voice lacked any real bite. Beside us, Yang Dian kept his head turned away, pretending not to listen. I could practically hear his thoughts. He was probably thinking that only a guy like me could use a near-death experience to score a kiss. To him, I was a legend. A man who didn't even care about school, but had a girl this loyal following him into the jaws of death. Ding Wentian cleared his throat and walked over. Technically, the school had a strict policy against early romance, but we were 18 and heading for university. Besides, he didn't have the heart, or the guts, to scold me. Not after what I'd just done. Old brother, I said, struggling to sit up. I tried to move, but my body felt like lead. I ended up just leaning against a jagged rock, half lying there. I put on quite a show today. Don't I get a reward? Of course, Ding Wentian said immediately. I'll get your student registration sorted personally. I'll even find the best tutors to help you catch up on your studies. I want spirit food, I interrupted. Ding Wentian blinked, caught off guard. Don't worry about that, he said, recovering quickly. The new fire guard will definitely reward you for this. I'll make sure of it. He was basically selling out the new fire guard's pantry to keep me happy. I nodded and stayed quiet. Spirit food was the universal currency of this world. It was packed with spiritual energy. One portion was worth half a day of hard cultivation, or 10,000 bucks in cash. After today's fight, I had tasted the sweetness of power. Between my 5-vein potential, the 9 gates of immortality, and the Black Blade system, I had the tools to climb to the top. But I needed resources to get there. I also realized I had been a bit impulsive today. I hadn't expected the gap between me and a Flame Realm Corpse ghost to be so massive. Every punch I threw had my full strength behind it, yet I ended up with shattered bones while the ghost only had a few cracks in its skin. I didn't regret it, though. If I hadn't stepped in, Sun Yin would be dead. He was a decent guy, and we'd crossed paths enough for me to consider him worth saving. Spirit food would help me heal and grow stronger. It was a win-win. Charge. Kill them all. Kill these bastards. A roar erupted from outside the school gates. Suddenly, over 100 bald men, shirtless and brandishing machetes, came sprinting into the courtyard. Leading them was a big bald guy with bandages wrapped around his arms and legs. He looked around wildly, his eyes searching for prey. There are no more ghosts here, he shouted to his crew. We'll protect the school. Since it's over, tell the students' families they owe us protection money. The big bald guy was still mid-sentence when he realized how quiet the courtyard was. Hundreds of students were staring at him like he was an idiot. He felt a chill and looked toward the rubble in the center of the yard. There stood Ding Wentian. Beside him was a stunningly beautiful girl, and on the other side was Yang Dian, standing like a stone-faced bodyguard. And in the middle of it all, half reclining on the debris like a king on a throne, was me. I was covered in blood, my hair cropped short, wearing that kind smile he knew all too well. Thud! The big bald guy dropped to his knees instantly. His subordinates, confused but sensing the terror in their boss, followed suit. 100 bald heads hit the dirt in unison. Shun, brother Shun, the leader stammered, his voice trembling. We came to help you. The school stayed silent. The contrast between their loud entrance and their current state of worship was hilarious. I knew it. I heard a student whisper. Brother Shen is definitely a big shot in the underworld. No wonder he's so ruthless, another muttered. Look at those guys. That's the Baldy gang. They're terrifying. The bald leader heard the whispers, but didn't dare move. He was cursing his luck. He'd heard what happened to Yang Dian, how I dragged him into a repair shop and re-educated him until he started following me around like a devoted son. He had already planned to come apologize to me, but then the ghost riot started. He thought he could use the chaos to squeeze some cash out of a school while the guards were busy. He never expected his first stop to be my doorstep. I saw the weird looks Ding Wentian and Ching Ching were giving me. My face darkened. I waved a hand dismissively. Get lost. Now. Yes. Right away. The bald guy scrambled up, ready to bolt. Wait, I called out. He froze mid-turn, looking like a soldier at attention. Yes, Brother Shin? Any orders? Go protect the elderly and the children, I said coldly. If I hear you took a single cent from anyone, I'll come looking for you. Understood. Mission accepted. He turned and sprinted away, his army of bald men trailing behind him. They ran for 300 meters before the leader finally dared to breathe. Boss, who was that kid? One of the younger guys grumbled. He's just one guy. Why are we scared? Slap. The leader smacked the back of the kid's head. You idiot. The wounds on my body. He's the one who gave them to me. The kid's eyes went wide. Then shouldn't we take him out? Take him out. You want to die? Go do it yourself. The leader snapped. Keep moving. Where are we going, boss? Didn't you hear him? We're protecting the elderly and the children. I am not giving that monster an excuse to find me again. The chaos lasted for 3 more hours. It wasn't until 8 in the evening that the last corpse ghost was hunted down and the breach in the ground was sealed. The sirens finally stopped. But the Eastern District was a scar on the earth. Everywhere I looked, I saw ruins, blood, and the glow of lingering fires. My expression didn't change, but my hand clenched into a tight fist. 10 years ago, it looked just like this. Only then, it was worse. Back then, the entire Western District had been turned to rubble. My parents had pushed the 3 of us to safety before turning back to join the fight. Today, the nightmare had returned. And this time, I was the one standing in the ruins.